Test, 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 test.
Right.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
We will convene in 1 minute. I like that. And I actually thought about bringing my gavel too. When all of you get like unruly, I can't get you back from break. Like, stop talking. We've got an agenda. Yes. So big red clock and gavel. We'll see you in Cheyenne in November for that. And I'm also assuming everyone did their homework and read their pamphlets. Did we distribute number 2 pencils to everyone for the quiz? Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, seeing that it is 8:30, I'll go ahead and recall the council back from our recess. And yep, so our next agenda item, which is agenda item, oh gosh, yes, this is the welcome. So hopefully you all had a wonderful night at Cowfish and had some really great ongoing conversations. Hopefully you got some good sleep and have a safe travel later today. So as you know, today really is focused on, we did most of our voting agenda items. We're kind of going to try to keep day 1 more to our voting items and then have more discussions on day 2. But today we'll be doing roll call, and then we hope to have some representation from the tribal council to kind of have an hour of discussion. And again, like we talked about yesterday, it's really about learning and, and understanding and that stuff. So we will keep that in mind. If for some reason that they do not show up today, then what I was thinking is we're just going to bump the agenda up. So instead of like filling it back, so we can just move forward and continue with our agenda, which means we may get out early. When I was like, I don't know if any of the council members will be unhappy about getting back to the road and back to their homes and jobs early. So that's the plan if that does happen. And then we're going to hear from the Riverton Workforce Center, and we're going to get some updates from them. So it'll be great to hear from our local one stop. And then we're going to talk about some NIU evaluations. We'll take a quick little break. And then we're going to talk a lot about the labor market information. So that was the information that was distributed to us yesterday. And then Jennifer is going to give us an update on our strategic plan, our state plan, kind of progress where we're at on that, what deadlines and stuff that we still have to do, and if we need help out in there. And then as always, we're going to end kind of with our subcommittee breakout groups. So when we get to that section, for those of you who are either not in a subcommittee or this is your first council meeting, we'll kind of just encourage you to join one and kind of learn about it. Because I definitely want to make sure by November, each of you are on some committee. And there are some committees that are full and some that need some additional assistance, but we'll kind of do our committee breakouts and get some updates from them. And then we will go into public comment and any other council business or news that we need to know about before we ask for a motion to adjourn. So that's kind of what our day is going to look like today. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kick it off. I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer. Would you mind doing roll call for us, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Governor Mark Gordon or designee.
Present.
Senator Fred Baldwin. Representative Ryan Berger. Ron Wild.
You sound better today.
Thank you. Tony Cross.
Present.
Smith. Chairman Eric Trowbridge.
Present.
Larry Fodor.
Present.
Michael Kircher. Bria Hemmick.
Present.
Deborah Zalnowski.
Present.
Wendy Fiskett-John.
Present.
Ina Conley. Nathan Williams. Philip Cornella.
Here.
Brenda Morgan.
Present.
Danny Riro.
Present.
Charles Wilson. Ann Meyer.
Present.
Matthew Davis.
Present.
Director Elizabeth Gagan,
Present.
Nikki Harper, Mayor Matt Hall, Katie Hogarty, Travis Lawrence,
Present.
Dr. Ben Moritz or designee, Superintendent Dagenfelder or designee, Dr. Corinne Schmidt or designee, Josh Durrell or designee.
Ron Goldberg, present.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. All right, and moving on to our next agenda item is the Wind River Reservation Workforce and Economic Development Brief. Do we have representation from the tribe to begin this conversation?
Mr. Chairman, I do not see Mr. Sorrell here yet. He did indicate yesterday afternoon that he would be here. He was going to try to make sure he had a member of the council with him as well. Perhaps the next agenda item and then.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so do we want any quarrels with just moving on in the agenda and just seeing if they just show up a little bit later? Cool. All right. Well, then if all of our presenters are ready early, we can go ahead and move on to the next one, which will be the Riverton Workforce Center update, and that's going to be presented by Deanna. Come on down. Yeah. No, just make sure your mic is turned on. That's all.
Mr. Chair, thank you for inviting us. I am the Workforce Center Manager for the Riverton and the Lander Workforce Centers. I am glad that you were able to join us in Fremont County. I'm sad that you've encountered smoke because we have beautiful vistas. We have 365-degree vistas and beautiful sunrises and sunsets and the agricultural land as well as lots of other great things to see. So we're a gateway to many of the other beautiful areas in Wyoming. I wanted to touch base on some things that were mentioned yesterday, but I just want to give you a quick snip of what it's like to be in a workforce center or be an employee in a workforce center. We may do anything from assisting an individual who walks in for unemployment insurance. I started making a list on Monday morning. The first person through the door was an individual who wanted help. He was a Wyoming resident, but wanted help with Utah unemployment. So it's not always something that is within our state system of what we're doing, but we're as a resource for individuals. We have partnership meetings. We have a resource room. So if individuals need to come in and they've had something go wrong with a particular piece of technology, we can help them in the resource room. They can be self-guided or we can sit there and assist them as well. We help with HireYO registrations. Our database system is hireyO.com. If you haven't had a chance to be on there, we'd encourage you to get on and look at it. It also has an opportunity to go to additional tools. So if individuals are looking for career tools and they want to do self-guided information, then there's an opportunity to create a resume. There's an opportunity to do a virtual interview. There's lots of resources and tools out there. But the great thing about resources in our office is we have the human touch. So we're able to look at people eye to eye. We're able to assist them not only with that specific need, but also there may be resources within our community that they've mentioned that they have a need for, and we can create those networks and partnerships. The resume requests I mentioned, oftentimes people will come in and they have technology needs. They may be filing for unemployment. We have a partnership with assisting with national fraud, and it's called an ID Me situation. It may be a situation that they want some help and connections with getting through that verification on ID Me. Don't know how many of you have done ID Me in your local business, but oftentimes if you're filing things with I-9 documentation for the IRS, you're going to have to do that at one point in time. We have an opportunity in a partnership with Department of Family Services, and it's called POWER, It's a program that helps individuals who are receiving SNAP benefits, supplemental nutrition program benefits, and they have family members. If they qualify and meet eligibility through DFS, they're referred to us for some career services, and we can help them become career ready. That is a big program within Fremont County. I think currently we have about 45 participants that participate in that. We can help with rapid response, and that's a situation where there's a reduction in force or a business closing. An example of that in our area is the Du Bois area, Warm Valley Lodge, which is a assisted living facility, is going to be closing. They're going to have 20 individuals who are looking for other employment. Most of those individuals, if we know ahead of time, we can assist them with what are their needs and would they like referrals to other employment opportunities. In other situations, you might have something like we just encountered in Shoshone, Wyoming, where we discovered that the mushroom farm is no longer in operation. And you really can't do front-facing services if you don't know about it ahead of time, but we try to, on the backside, see if there's anything that if we can get people to reach out to us. Can we meet employees, past employees somewhere? Can we offer packets? Would they like to come into the office? Can we go to the community center in Shoshone, that type of thing? And then there's somewhere that's in between. We had a local restaurant that announced that they were going out of business. They invited us to come in and we take employment packets there and ask them how we can assist with that transition, if there's anything at all that we can do. Larger businesses across the state have what's called a WARN. And so that's a system in which they have to notify the state that if they have 100 or more employees that they're going to be closing down, and we can help with those partnerships. And try to do that process easier. I think they've had one of those just recently, very successfully in the Rock Springs area with a shutdown. We work with the Northern Arapaho 477 program, and a 477 program for both of the reservation entities is an opportunity for their social services to come under one roof line and be able to help with resources. The Northern Arapaho Tribal 477 program has invited us to come in, and we have been helping their supervisors learn about the Higher YO system. And then we have extended also the offering if they'd like us to do workshops on site with their participants. And they're the driving force on that as to how they want that to look and when they want that to occur, how many people would attend. They offer resource rooms, so they have laptops and a setup there, as well as we do one-on-one. If individuals walk through the door and they want one-on-one assistance, we help with that as well. Wind River Job Corps Center. Every Thursday in our office, we have an orientation with students that are usually within 1 to 3 weeks of arriving on center. So we get to see those faces from all over that are coming in to participate in the trades and to receive their high set or pursue their high school education. We give an opportunity to let them know that there will be a low cost or a no cost resource center wherever they end up in the US. If they're going back home to Texas, I heard you mention some students from Texas, Montana, wherever, we want them to know that there are workforce centers where they will go back. If they decide to stay in Wyoming, then obviously we share information about Wyoming. We also do on-site outreach with Wind River Job Corps. We're invited to come there with their resume prep programs and with work registration. Just recently, we attended graduation, and then Jerry Pregene, who's back here in the audience, she has invited us, and we participate in their quarterly council meetings, community council meetings that are on campus. If you haven't had the opportunity to visit a Job Corps, I would highly encourage you to visit the Wind River Job Corps Center. It is a beautiful state-of-the-art facility and has great opportunities. Many different trades, and they're on the vista. They're clear up on the top of Griffey Hill, and they really can see out amongst the valley. Great opportunities for students. And one of the great things with our partnership with youth, we have an out of school youth program, and that's a partnership with Central Wyoming College. A lot of those youth that are finishing their high set aren't really sure where they're going to go. And we can work with our admissions officer for Job Corps, who's a Ryan Morris. He has an office in our Riverton office. And we can make that connection happen with that particular youth, and they can share with them the opportunities to have a trade, even an advanced trade through Wind River Job Corps. A lot of individuals aren't really sure about where they're going to be. They might not be considered homeless. They may be unhoused, and there is a difference. But it gives them an opportunity if they want a place to land and the housing is provided for them, room and board is provided for them, and a wonderful opportunity to learn a trade. And they can move to another center for an advanced trade if they so choose. The Central Wyoming College partnership with Adult Basic Ed and the GED College of Career Readiness. We are on site at that facility on Wednesdays. We also participate in their class orientation. So when they're starting a new cohort class, we come on site and we are part of that to share with them what the Workforce Center opportunities are, what the WIOA program is, and our specific out-of-school youth program is called the DREAM program. And individuals, if they so choose to participate and they meet eligibility, they can earn incentives for classroom attendance and working towards their high set. And then once they provide that they have pursued through that in verification of that certificate, they get cash incentives for that. And then the next step is, do you want to continue on with advanced education, or can we help you with an employment opportunity? So that's a great partnership and has been going really well. CWC, we also partner, they have a career services department. We partner with them. And one of the big focuses that we have in Fremont County is an employment expo. So that employment expo is on site. It is a partnership with Central Wyoming College. Last year's was February 27th. This year, the date we have already set is February 25th of 2025. They have that in the Arts Center. Typically, we have approximately 50 employers that sign up, and we'll provide opportunities on-site interviewing for applicants who come. It's been a great partnership with CWC and very well attended, and we've been very pleased with the employers that participate in that as well. Usually we get about 200 individuals in the community that walk through the doors. It's kind of hard. They have multiple entries for that facility, so you can't always get a real hard count on that. The other thing that has seemed to work well since COVID is a lot of employers will like to have a spot to come on site and interview individuals. If we know that they're coming, we can advertise ahead of time, and whether that's flyers. We're lucky enough within Fremont County that our local radio station gives us a spot every morning, so we're able to highlight things that are going on or hot jobs that are on in the community. And that's a great community service that our radio station does for us. Next week in Riverton, we will be hosting the sugar company out of Worland. It's time for beet harvest in Fremont County. And so they would like to do on-site interviews, and we'll be advertising for them. And that might be anybody from a tear tender who's checking in trucks, or that might be drivers as well. So it works well for some of the smaller businesses to come on site and then just do things right there. UR Energy last year and the year before actually spent a couple of months in our office because they had a hard time getting on site. And some of their folks were from the Fremont County, Natrona County area. And so they actually just used our conference room as they could, week by week, depending on if they could get on site or not, and then do interviews. And it was great because as people were coming in and saying, I can't find anything, we had a connection right there with an employer to say, if you have time today, they're willing to talk to you right now. They also shared employment packets with us. And, so that we could help people fill things out right on site if they had their I-9 documentation, and we would send it in and submit it to their HR people. So those are things and connections with employers that we're happy to do, and services that they offer. We currently are doing outreach in Du Bois. So we're going up to Du Bois a couple of times a month. Their library has been kind enough to offer us a space with that, and that's going really well. We have involvement with Leadership Fremont County. Our core partners through WIOA, of course, is Adult, Dislocated Worker, and Youth. We help individuals with their community choice or their customer choice. The community college may send someone down and say an individual just isn't really sure which direction they want to do. But whether it's community college or whether it's a partnership through a trade school such as WyoTech, things like that, it's consumer choice. And then we try to work with them from that, help them the realization of a budget, what's going to happen with that. Wagner Pizer is one of our core partners. Department of Vocational Rehabilitation. More and more, we're seeing individuals that could benefit from the partnership with Department of or Division of Rehab, and then of course education. Unemployment is a partner. We have a program called RESEA. So it's a reemployment services grant where individuals by a particular selection from unemployment will be encouraged to come into the office. I say encouraged because if they don't come in or don't complete their appointment, then their unemployment benefits are suspended for a little bit. So we want to make sure that their work registration is up to date. We want to offer services to them if they want help creating a resume or referrals to other employment opportunities within whatever job skill set they have. The Work Initiative Network in our world with WIN is an opportunity for individuals who have been referred to us through the child support area. And if they're behind in child support and are having a hard time landing employment, we can work with them in a case management situation one-on-one to also ensure that they have work registration, that it is reflective of the skill sets that they particularly have and the resources that may be available for them. It's a great program. It's a partnership with Department of Family Services and Child Support to help those individuals who are having a hard time connect and then be able to get funds back into the families that are raising those children. Sometimes it's just a matter of resources that are available on that. We can assist individual businesses with job orders. Not everybody is comfortable doing that. A lot of people are actively engaged in running their business and they would like someone else to handle that for them. Our business reps in our local offices, they can visit you on site or they can take information over the internet or they can take information over the phone to help write a job order for you that will be posted on HireYO and assist with recruitment for your positions on that. We work closely with our research and planning department for labor market information to share information, not only with employers as to what the trends are and what the historical data is as to what might be a high demand, high growth field. Again, it comes back to customer choice. There may be things that we offer incentives in as far as being able to upgrade your skill set in certain areas, but it is consumer choice on that. I mentioned the career services, the interviewing will match up with a team member and do on-site interviewing. We do go to the high schools. They have a careers day and most of them will ask for us to do a mock interview with students, which is good for the students because in small communities, you're pretty familiar with all the teachers and feel pretty comfortable around them. You have somebody who comes in from the outside, you have to take it a little more serious and gives them that real world experience. Application prep, cover letters, more and more we're seeing maybe some just insight on general adulting 101 and what that might look like. Currently, the state of Wyoming is involved in an ARPA grant, and that's that upskilling focus that you heard about yesterday. An example of individuals who are participating in that is an individual through the Fremont County office is pursuing their associates in business. We have a couple of folks who are pursuing to obtain their CDL licensure. The Career Compass, Reentry Second Chance, Justice Involved, that is a priority population for us. So individuals who have been or are currently justice involved, we do what we can within the realm of what their abilities are and their skill sets. And if they want to upgrade those skill sets, we're involved in that. I know that there's going to be the next topic on the audit that was done. There's some things on measurements and outcomes that's in there. If you have any questions, if there's something that I can offer on that, that would be great. One thing that comes to mind in our area is we're the boots on the ground. You guys are the muscle power and the knowledge out there. Any networking that you could do to help with individuals to be able to be knowledgeable about our services, we would love that. We'd love to host any of you into a workforce center. You don't have to announce that you're coming in, but if you do announce and there's a particular topic you'd like to know more about, if you give us the opportunity to set some time aside, we'll make sure that you're on the appointment schedule and we can do that. Just keep in mind with reauthorizations of WIOA, and I know that probably comes to you, there's certain things that if you asked us, we'd be happy to share information on. I think one thing to keep in mind is that there's a difference between what minimum wage is, and there's an education on what's a livable wage within the state of Wyoming, and family or self-sufficient or self-sustaining wages, especially with inflation rates as to what's happening. And measurements and outcomes as outlined on WIOA, some of the challenging things for us in our area is we have a lot of seasonal employment just because of the nature of what we do, and sometimes it has to do weather related. But the construction trades, tourism trades, oftentimes when we do training with CDL individuals, and if we're measured for second and fourth quarter after exit, are they employed and are they employed with that same employer? If you've obtained a CDL, it may not be in your best interest that you're planning on staying with a particular employer second and fourth quarter after exit. It's a super bonus if that's it. But the fact that you're employed and that you're working within that trade, I think is probably pretty wonderful. And seasonal employment, the way those quarters fall or those quarters roll, you might not be employed in that particular month, but the season might start that next month. And so you might fall off on there. I think one of the other things that's mentioned in the upcoming audit discussion is that a lot of individuals, they come for training, but there's a benefits cliff that they can fall off of. And benefits cliff is that the opportunity for them before they're employed in a particular skills level, they qualify for a variety of services. And if they obtain a particular trade and they're going to work, it may disqualify them. They might just be on the edge. It may disqualify them for benefits that they could have prior to employment. And so the more that we look at high demand, high trade industries, that becomes ever more important. But just keep in mind also, our programs are the choice of the consumer. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Appreciate your time to share with the various things that we do on a personalized nature in our workforce centers. And most all of us that work in workforce centers, that human services part is what fills our soul. And so we're happy to be able to serve the citizens of Wyoming.
Thank you, Deanna. Sounds like you have a lot of bandwidth, so I think you need to do a little bit more engagement there. We need a lot more programs, more stuff. So no, great updates. Council discussion or thoughts or questions? Yes, Ron?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Deanna. Great report. Could you expand a little more? You mentioned general insight into Adulting 101 and what that meant. Is there a response to that? It made me think of the State Board of Education a couple years ago. I think they finalized that profile of a Wyoming high school graduate document. So I was just wondering what you meant.
I have no knowledge of the high school document, but in our world, Adulting 101 sometimes just has to do with when they first come into a workforce center, communication and appropriate communication, expectations, learning about appointments, learning about the fact that if they're going to attend some sort of a training, there's an expectation of participation. There's an expectation of completion. And our goal for them, and we would hope that their goal jointly with us, no matter what partner we work with, is employment in the end. And then employment, how do you keep employment? How do you deal with difficult situations, and what's the responsibility and the appropriate way to approach things if things aren't going well? If it's not a good partnership, how do you quit a job? You know, how do you find something else? Some of those communications things, the budgeting. A lot of individuals, we have the expectation, or sometimes the anticipation that people know how to budget. And we'll show them things on paper. But then if you get a bill and it's pretty popular right now that any kind of insurance, whether it's your homeowner's insurance or your vehicle insurance, things like that, that it escalates in price. What do? You know, where's the give and take? If you're already right to the line, then what are the resources in your community to help you with that if that's not your passion or your area of expertise? Those types of things, is that?
Cool. Thank you. Any other council discussion or questions for Deanna? Yes, Phil?
You know, I think it depends on where you look for the data on that. If you look at Bureau of Labor Statistics, I think that they're saying right now across the board, it's 1077 for a single individual. I don't know of anyone who would be able to pay rent and operate a vehicle and sustain themselves on 1077 per hour in a 40-hour work week.
Thanks.
Correct. Department of Workforce Services in general, I'm sure has. I personally have not. I have to speak for my own stuff in Fremont County, and we don't have a lot of unions in our area in Fremont County. It's an opportunity that I would have to learn more, but I'd have to defer to other individuals in other workforce centers on the expertise on that. I had something that I missed, Mr. Chair.
Sure, go for it.
I have 4 examples of success stories. If you have just a minute, I'd love to share with you. And these success stories happen to be because I knew this presentation was going to be here at the Frank Weiss Center. I couldn't give you the statistics. I'll tell you just from dealing with customers who come through the door, probably 40% of the individuals who come through our door self-identify as American Indian. One of the success stories in the HiSET program is we had a gentleman who just finished. He wanted that next step. He wanted employment, and he advertised with a business that is currently serving the firefighter industry in Du Bois with our wildfires. He interviewed and he was hired the next day. He's gone to work for $18 an hour, plus he gets fringe benefits of $4.73 per hour. He is ecstatic. He is over the moon. And, you know, it's those kind of feel-good stories, and that's the reason that we do our job. Power participants, if they find employment, even if it's part-time employment, there is an incentive built in with Department of Family Services that if they bring in their verification of employment, right then they get $150 incentive for finding employment. It doesn't matter if it's 5 hours a week, doesn't matter if it's 40 hours a week. We have an individual who is from our local area, and she came in with a lot of barriers. We talk about a barrier to employment. And some of the layers of what people have are beyond comprehension. Those of you that deal with mental health or counseling, you understand that. To the average layperson, oftentimes we don't. This individual came in and her sister had been murdered. She was working as a CNA and she wanted to obtain her RN degree. So COVID hit, that kind of hit everything for hands-on clinicals. She made it through that. In the meantime, her dad died. And she, because of cultural awareness, is also raising her sister's children. So she had all of these things that hit her as additional barriers, but she was extremely successful. And now she is a registered nurse who works for a tribal entity. And I saw her in the grocery store the other day. And that's another thing about small communities. They come up and they will say, thank you. You know, they did all the work, but they want to thank you. We have an individual who just trained as a CNA, and she is going to be working with Wind River Cares. We have a justice-involved individual who came in and through the Dislocated Worker Grant completed a CDL. He had many years of being incarcerated. He has successfully obtained his CDL, and he is working and he's making $23 an hour. And the last one that I wanted to just highlight and share with you is we had a work experience individual in school youth work experience was working with a local chamber. And that individual was able to obtain a partnership with a paint vendor with Department of Transportation. And that individual is a foster youth. We did do a tour of Wind River Job Corps with him. And he's excited about that. But right now, once you're making money, sometimes that's a draw. And he's going to be going full time with the paint vendor for Department of Transportation. So those are the types of partnerships that we have and the success stories. They're individualized. It's not a big group. We meet people where they're at and we try to fulfill what they need. So.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing those stories, Deanna. And I mean, yeah, your team sounds like they're doing a lot of on the ground work, reaching out, partnering with all different kinds. So, you know, lots of thanks from us as a council to you and to your team. Just keep up the great work. And we love, it's one of my favorite things about Quarterly Council is getting to hear from the one stop in the region, like what's going on and what are you working on. So thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Thank you
Right,
for the invitation.
Yeah. All right. Well, we were running a little bit ahead of schedule, and so we have James Sorrells from the Tribal Liaison. We're going to be going into our kind of panel discussion with James regarding Wind River Reservation Workforce and Economic Development Brief. And James, just again, thanks for taking the time to be with us today. I think what we're really here to do is just to listen and to learn more about what's going on in the Wind River Reservation and economic development. And we're just kind of here to ask questions and listen.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again. Of course, I'm James Sarles. I'm the tribal liaison to the Eastern Shoshone Tribe out of Governor Mark Gordon's office. Currently, I guess it isn't still fairly new news that the Wind River Development Fund just received like $36 million for some projects out here. I'm really I haven't had the chance to visit with them or any of the other entities that are receiving the funds. I believe one of them happens to be the Buffalo Initiative, Jason Baldez's crew. So they're excited. One of them also is a joint program with the Fish and Game. They will be getting a building and some stuff like that. But again, you know, as you all know, and that's a large amount of money. That's a large amount of money. They're probably going to need some expertise, workforce as well. I mean, it's and of course, believe it's got to be spent down within like 3 years. So it's a lot of money for the community, for the reservation, for the county even. You know, I think the biggest barrier is probably going to be finding ample people to fill the positions that are going to be needed. I will probably be visiting with her, give my card, as well as anybody else that has probably the Lander Center as well, and try to reach out, get them connected with, I'm sure they're already connected with some of the programs out here. Another employment program out here is called Taro, Tribal Employment Rights Office. Again, that's a joint program. So I'm with the East Shoshone tribe, so the joint program would also includes the Northern Arapaho tribe. So there's some of the stuff that we'll have to work together on, and like I said, try to get these funds spent and build some buildings and I think there's a couple of museums. So there's it's quite a large project. I believe one of them also is Trout Creek. I think they're I think they got 30 acres up there for some, to plants and some harvesting area to where, bring back some of the native plants. So that's excuse me. So that's another one. Just a lot of things going on just with that one project. So there's some other stuff going on as well, but that's the kind of the main focus right now. So that's probably pretty much had right now. I was kind of just doing this off the hip here. So
Yeah, no, thanks you. I've been following this development very closely. It sounds very exciting, so is there potential like one project that you're more excited? Are you excited about everything, or is there something in particular that you're looking forward to?
well, for me, I probably just got to take it all in and kind of see where, it's the big picture of it. So it's just again, probably very excited of who's gonna draw first. Where it's gonna which one is gonna take the first push the first shovel in the ground, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I could see like you get that money, it's really exciting. There's all these ideas and problems that can be solved with that. Then you're like, oh, we need people, we need housing. So, so that's definitely a large. Is there are any of those funds allocated or can be allocated towards housing for staffing and workforce?
Oh, I have no idea
Okay.
about that, about how that's broke down, or I haven't seen the whole all the paperwork on it, so I have no idea. But I'm sure Winter Development Fund though probably has a good plan. It seems like they've been doing this stuff for a while now here, so I'm sure they have a good plan, as well as working closely with each area where it's going to be going. So excited about that. I'm sure we'll be involved with it at some point. So it's just almost kind of overwhelming right now, I guess I should say. That's I don't think that's ever been done out here. So
No, I think you're right. And, honestly, you're not alone, right? So if there's anything that the Wyoming Workforce Development Council can do to help with that or advise or get you connected to the right people, you obviously are here, you've met us. So we're very open-minded to helping you work through all of that stuff, because one person won't be able to do it all. So yeah, we're here to help.
yeah, it'll be a good experience, that's for sure. So yeah, I look forward to working with some of them. I know a couple already, so the help is there. I know it is. So far so good. I think it's it's still in its infancy. So we'll see how it. Like I said, I'm anxious to see who puts the shovel in the ground first.
Yeah, let us know. Great job, James. Council discussion or questions for James? Yeah, lots going on here in the Wind River, especially with that big grant and museums, agriculture. Yes, Tony.
Just a quick question. You mentioned it was the 3-year term that the money needed to be.
Yeah,
spent?
I'm sorry. Yes, most of the time when these grants come through, they have to be spent down within 3 years. Could be 3 years, could be 5 years, but it needs to be allocated by then.
Do you know, is that 3 years from when exactly?
Again, I have no
Roughly
idea.
3 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any other council discussion or questions for James? All right. Well, hearing none.
All right, well, thank you so much. I need to exit. I have some more meetings coming up, so I'll hand out some cards and look forward to hearing from anybody if they have any need any help out here or that I can help with on, because I'm on the ground out here all the time, except for during legislation time, but for now, so I will do that. Thank you for having me, that's for certain. It's quite the experience. I hear some stories, so it was good. So hopefully it'll be a beautiful day again with no smoke.
It will be a beautiful day. Yes. Well, I mean, I can't guarantee the smoke part, but
Thank you.
yes. Well, thank you very, very much for your valuable time, James. And so, yeah, reach out. We're here to help. We'll keep an eye on it. You'll hear from us. So, all right. Well, moving right along in our agenda, we have our NIU evaluation report that's going to be presented to us by Jennifer. So, Jennifer, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I would like to direct everyone's attention to the, sorry, my brain is still struggling, to the Title I Wyoming evaluation report that is found in Onboard. Let me switch to sharing a different screen. I'd first like to point out that the Northern Illinois University found that Wyoming had many promising practices when it comes to equitable service delivery. There are, and if you've read the full report, there are many. We have some great frontline staff that really are trying to meet people where they are. There are a few items I'd like to point out that are recommended for making our workforce system better. So the first item is some more focus on data that we can collect from the actual population. So the first item that they suggested that we implement in our one-stops is to track where some of the other funding might be coming from. So when we talk about how we're collaborating with other entities and how some entities might be providing other services, such as maybe DFS is providing childcare, that we start documenting that. So that both gives us an idea if we're meeting our participants' complete needs and removing those barriers, and then who might be providing that funding. So it also shows that collaboration. The next item is some more surveys around diversity and equity of access. So in the state, according to DOL, we really need to make sure that everyone has access and that we are focusing on priority populations. Right now, we're just barely meeting the minimum of focusing on the priority, priority populations. So we need to work harder on that, but then also making sure that we truly are being accessible to everyone. So they have provided a sample survey, the questions, and some of the roadmap for us to implement to track that data. Yeah, so we also talk about data cliffs. And this is a project that many states are working with when it comes to data cliffs, and really informing our participants about what they need to make in order to cover their expenses, especially if they hit a benefit cliff, where if they make just a few dollars more, then they lose their childcare support, which could put them in the negative. So we're having, especially at the national level, a lot of conversations about making sure that our participants fully understand these, that they're well informed when it comes to benefit cliffs, so that we can help them with their transition. So one of the many benefits of the WIOA program is to get individuals into self-sustaining employment. So a benefit cliff is a part of the conversation to make sure that they're making enough for their rent, their childcare, and any other subsidies that they might have been receiving before, making sure that they're able to cover those if that's what we need to do. So the last item I wanted to talk about today is the quality jobs versus in-demand jobs. So there's a lot of conversation on a national level, but we've been having this conversation at a state level as well. If you remember right, it was this time last year, the council voted on the in-demand occupation list, and that was to provide a resource for the one-stops to provide career counseling in industries that have been identified as in-demand jobs. In the state, we're also trying to make sure that these are quality jobs. So you can't just assume that an in-demand job is a quality job. So that's where the in-demand occupation list that's been created and we continue to fine tune is to also make sure that those jobs have the self-sustaining wage, that these jobs also are not just churn jobs, that they're in demand because those positions are constantly losing employees, and making sure that these in-demand jobs come with benefits. Trevor, if you would like to jump in more on quality jobs versus in-demand jobs, I'm more than happy. But otherwise, Northern Illinois had a lot of good information to say, some helpful things for us to look at going forward for capturing that data, capturing more of that collaboration, and making sure that we are meeting all of our participant needs, and then making sure that we're focusing on quality jobs that are in demand.
Mr. Chairman, thanks, Jennifer, for that lead in. We are working through some things with the in-demand list and trying to make that as a more resourceful tool for the Workforce Center team. The other part of that Jennifer discussed was the quality jobs. In demand is really a quantitative piece. Quality jobs is really the qualitative, or qualitative, not quantitative. And that's really, as an individual's coming in and getting services in the workforce centers, having those discussions about what is a quality job and trying to identify what makes a job quality, like having benefits, the type of work-life balance that they're able to have, those different conversations that we can't necessarily get data on. And so we're starting to look at what resources and tools that we can make sure are available for the workforce centers, so that they can help people have those conversations, and help them get in a job and in a career that they're going to be able to stay in and be successful in.
Thank you, Trevor. And thank you, Jennifer, for that presentation. Yeah, as you can see, there's 46 pages there. So once again, you've got homework. You've got 46 pages due by tomorrow morning. I want a full report. Do we have any council questions or discussions about what Northern Illinois University has put together for us? Or either Jennifer or Trevor? Yes, Ivy.
If I may, I just wanted to circle back to the question that
Philip had asked about that sustaining wage, and I know Jennifer kind of hit on this a little bit as well, but I wanted to add to that. So really the definition that we're looking at in that family sustaining wage is the minimum amount of income a family needs to cover basic expenses such as food, housing, childcare, healthcare, and transportation. So what is that wage? As Deanna pointed out, that varies entirely depending on the area that you live in. And the Department of Labor has not set a specific wage level for defining family sustaining wages. However, MIT put together, and it's different than what you would see in the poverty guidelines, for example, that a lot of other programs use, such as in the Health and Human Service area. But MIT did put together what they would identify as family sustaining wages for Wyoming. And one adult with 0 children is $21.07 an hour. And so then that scale increases incrementally depending on adults and children in the household as well. So just a little bit more clarification on that for you.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Ivy. Any other questions or comments? All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just real quick. A thought on the WIOA longitudinal Q2 and Q4. I mentioned yesterday when I was chatting with everyone that the majority of the Job Corps centers are privately operated, and they have a lobbying group that represents them and goes to Capitol Hill and advocates for them. And so going back to something that Deanna referenced with the Q2 and Q4 longitudinal data, that is something that we've discussed about seasonal workers. And so we are pressing that and looking at the other metrics as well. So just want to make sure we get that on the minutes, that it's something that we're pressing, and I just chatted with Jerry, but we're going to be talking to our elected officials about in the next reiteration of WIOA how these metrics work and how we compare each other based on different states and different seasons and all that stuff. So just wanted to get that on the record.
Yeah, no, that's a great share. I did not know about that. So thanks for the update. Any other comments, questions around the NIU evaluation? All right, hearing none. Next up on our agenda is a break, which, we are running way ahead of schedule today. So I want to take one quick little opportunity before we go to a quick 10-minute break, since we have the time. And so I don't think we have any council members that are joining us remotely. Nope. So it's just everyone that's here in this room. So I would just like a quick little roundtable with all the council members. Thinking forward the next 4 years as your new chair, kind of, what is this council doing? What would you like to see it do? Like, what projects are we working on 4 years from now? So I'll give you like a minute or two to kind of think about that, but I think it'd be kind of fun to go around the table and think about what would you like to see us as a group collective doing 4 years from now? What is something like one brief thing that sticks out to you that you would like to see this council either get more involved in or change? And then we'll go around. So I'm looking at you, Tony. You'll kick us off and we'll do a little firework round here. We can start with Ron. Do you have something, Ron?
I'll be the guinea pig. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Off the top of my head, I just want to say, yesterday and today, I'm really enjoying the discussions. I like the local workforce center report. I don't know, it just seems like a good mix. So if anything, I would say, we're able to take the Justice Involved work group and talk about that and then get a lot of good questions. So, some kind of a nice combination of learning questions, discussions about efforts, projects, some of the collaboration going on, and then these great reports from staff. So it's a little squishy maybe, but I like what's happened yesterday and today. So
Yeah, I do too. I think it's a balance, right, between information and engagement, and then also making sure when these really cool ideas kind of spark in the council, that we don't like lose track of them, right? So we like, Larry, you had a really great idea yesterday, and like we just need to do some research on it. But yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
Ron. Danny, what about you?
My mind immediately goes to, we have a strategic plan. So there's stuff in there from the comms perspective that my mind goes, oh, I'd like to see some of those checked off. I think one of the things that I'd like to see us weigh in on as much as possible, engage with, is still back to communication, kind of a branding perspective on how do we make workforce services and kind of what we're helping advise more accessible, especially to employers. We talked more about it at dinner last night. It's a thing that, employing somewhere between 20 and 30 people at any given time, I don't know all the resources we can take advantage of. So even to point my employees to take advantage of it, or how do I take advantage of it for justice involved? We've got the state pen in our county, and I've never thought about trying to get these guys that are cooking huge quantities in those kitchens and learning skills, and it's just never crossed my mind. So I'd really like to see how we can help push out the messaging to employers, because it is a different perspective that I had never considered until sitting in this room. Even as an employer, it had never crossed my mind. Like, how do I take advantage of workforce services? So I think it's a big, for lack of a better term, a big market that I'd like to see us communicate to more thoroughly.
Yeah, yeah, we had a really great conversation about that last night at dinner. So, yep, I'm also passionate about that. What about you, Philip?
I think that employers are already taking advantage of workforce services. And one thing I would like to see is maybe not making it so attractive and for these big businesses, big corporations to come in here and work, and maybe some more work for our workers to, instead of getting a minimum wage here and, a quality job that says it's $20 an hour, which is $20 less than a lot of people make in good jobs. Maybe a little more focus on what we're going to do for our workers instead of what we're going to do for all these employers. Because as soon as they come in and the job's done, they're done. They don't care what happens to the workers at that point. So, and specifically our local workers. That's kind of my thing.
Yeah, that's kind of what makes the Department of Workforce Services unique is we have the employment side and that piece, because without the companies, we don't have the jobs, and without the people, we don't have companies. So it's kind of that chicken and egg scenario. So yeah, it's always about balancing both, right? Yep, agreed. What about you, Dan?
Yeah, thanks. So, over the next 4 years, there's a lot of big work coming to Wyoming with data centers, nuclear power projects, and other energy projects. If we could somehow help, or whether it's through apprenticeships or whatever, but make sure Wyoming workers, or we're utilizing Wyoming workers first. I know that's always been said, but there's been a lot of times where big projects show up in our state and everybody from Texas and Louisiana comes up here and does them. And some of that money comes to the community, most of it leaves. So, just continuing focusing on getting Wyoming workers, good quality projects and involved in all this big work that's coming.
Yep, I totally agree. Great. Thank you, Dan. Larry?
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of ideas. Brenda and I were talking about this yesterday, and a lot of us that are kind of boots on the ground, trying to get involved, trying to get in front of potential employees, just maybe using, whether it's on board on the meeting schedule or something, but if there's a career fair in your area, post it so that we have, I go on Ron's website at least twice a week just to see what he's got going on, but I might not pay attention to all of his job fairs, but something centralized that we can all go to, and I can update everybody that way on what's happening in Cheyenne. Brenda can handle Casper, Ron. thanks. But just something centralized for all these events that are happening outside of the council, but maybe if it just shows up on meetings or something on board, everybody gets a notification. If you're available, stop by, that type of thing.
No, I love that. I brought that up yesterday when I went to the, the WIOA partner, and I was like, that's so cool. If I'd known about it and I had time, like, yeah, I'll just pop in, right? So, and that's also where Onboard, it's a very, very powerful online, board platform. And there are things that we haven't really hopefully turned on. There's opportunities, I guess, to use it in a more way. One of the things I'm excited about is there's also demographics. So kind of show you your board breakdown, where they're living. And then there might be like a little survey where it'll actually will say like your skills. And so then when we're looking for new council representation, we can look at like, we've got a lot of skills over here in strategy, but we need X, Y, and Z. So, but to your point, I love the idea of like a centralized calendar location where you can see what's going on, local job fairs, that stuff. Yep. Great. Ron, what about you?
Larry said I'm not allowed to talk today.
I would agree with that.
So, I've sat here and I've listened. I wouldn't have mind being the very last person to say anything. But the one thing that I will point out is that I keep hearing we. Okay. We need to. As long as it's a we, it's never gonna get done. It requires individual effort of every person on this council whenever they leave to carry the message out and forward. Now, Larry bust my chops over the Southwest Manufacturing Partnership, and in case I haven't mentioned it yet today.
He's got cards if you guys.
But the point is that the reason that he busts my chops over that is every time I am out and running around Southwest Wyoming, I'm raising our efforts. Okay. And it's me supporting the team doing that. Okay. So the question comes to my mind as far as what do we know in the next 4 years? It's not a we, it's a you. What are you going to do in the next 4 years to move this council forward?
Brilliant. Actually, that is truly, I feel, on point. That is kind of a vision and a direction I'd like this council to move into. And because, we're going to be discussing here later this year, bylaws and and term limits, right? And I was thinking, so as when we actually kind of talk about that and discuss it, 10 years from now, no one in this room is going to be here. There'll be a whole new chair, new vice chair, all new council members. 10 years from now, none of us, the DWS folks will still be here, but this council, everyone in this room today will not be here. And so we have this unique opportunity for a little portion of our lives to participate and to engage on a state level that has a large impact, right? So it's like, you just got to remind yourself that that's why you're here, right? So perfect, Ron. Yep, all about you. Travis.
Chairman ET. I guess a couple things popped into my mind. One of them I think was discussed during our strategy sessions and strategic thinking. And that was utilizing our partners more on what is needed in Wyoming. So whether that's the business council and a company coming to town. And one thing you said last night that you appreciate about the state of Wyoming is that we're small and we can pivot. And since my tenure on the council, I don't think I don't remember any of those opportunities coming about to where we can effectively deploy the council's budget to try to find a solution. So I would like to be mindful of that here in the next 4 years. And then another thing that came to mind is maybe an additional sector out there of the underemployed. I think we have a lot of employees with knowledgeable resources that are underemployed in the state. And I don't know, how we can elevate them as a workforce and generate more dollars coming into our state. I think with remote work, it's easier to do that. But I don't know what that looks like, but it's been something that I've been thinking about.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I haven't really thought much about that either, but now you've given me some brain food for, we have a 4-hour drive to think about it.
And maybe to put Ron more on the place, I think that isn't like the main temple of economic development, bringing dollars from outside of the state that gets retained in our state and cycles in our state. And I think the underemployed might help do that.
Yeah, thank you, Travis. Brenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am a native of Wyoming. I am the oldest of 7 that are only still in the state. I love helping people find information. I'm also very excited when I come to these council meetings because I do hear from Larry, did you know about this career fair a couple of days ago? So I get a little frustrated because there's so many pockets of information and resources out there, and there seems to be, as small as our state is, no centralized place to find the information, and it drives me crazy. WYO Hire or hirewyo.gov. If you look down on the bottom right of the page, our workforce centers are supposed to be posting their career fairs out there. We had talked about this a couple meetings ago. So there is a place for our DWS centers to post their career fairs. So I do try to use that as a resource. But yeah, that's my biggest frustration is centralizing all this amazing information to go to and help people so that we don't run into each other and say, hey, how come I didn't see it at that career fair? I'm like, oh, dang it. Because yeah, we do have to take our energy, our experiences, our expertise, and talk to these individuals because that's the most effective way to help people is talking to them individually. People in Wyoming don't like remote. They want to be talked to eye to eye. So we all have that great ability to do that in this room, but we also have a lot of holes where we can't see that information or it happened a couple days ago. So my goal is to somehow create a centralized resource place for us to find all of that great information.
Very cool. I have the answer for you. AI.
I had 3 AI people help me the other day with an IT issue. It was horrible. They didn't understand my issue. And I finally said, you are no help. And they said, we're sorry.
Yeah, but that actually is something. I mean, as you all know, I'm a very big tech nerd, worked for Apple for quite a while. But yeah, I'm also looking at some companies like it's generative AI. We're actually implementing it at Blue, and it's truly revolutionary. It's taking the knowledge base and being able to talk to your data, which is super cool. So yeah, we'll kind of take a peek at that in the next couple of years. But Mr. Davis, what are your thoughts?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brenda, I agree. I maybe wrote my notes down a little bit differently. I said that there needs to be a clear web of resources. I've worked in different states with workforce investment boards, and this is the first time I've gotten the chance to be in a single area state. And we have this unique advantage that I've never gotten to be a part of. And we've got, we've got Lauren who's sitting here with us. So we've got federal, state, county policy experts with Ivy. I mean, and then we've got business owners. And so to me, when I hear all this information going around, I think, the difference in policy experts being geniuses in interpreting WIOA or whatever different policies we have at federal, state levels. And then we've got business owners who know how to make money and generate profit. I think the universal currency is information. And so the way we can make each other wealthy is by creating systems that create information gathering for each of, and this is kind of what you were speaking to, I think. And so if we, and it could be AI or it could be some other system, but a way that we can connect with resources. So I know that if it's youth or seniors or justice involved people, if we have a way of syncing that, and even with these job fairs and all that stuff, if there's a way we can connect in that way, I think that will make us all wealthy, passing along information as quickly as possible. So that was my only take. So,
Yeah,
thank you.
no, and I think hopefully, that's what makes this council so unique, to your point. Like, I feel like it's probably one of the most, if not the most unique council in the state, because we have so many conveners here. We have so many different departments that, are part of this council. And to your point, we've got policy experts, we've got government information, we've got private industry involved. We've got people all across the state of Wyoming. Like, this is a truly unique platform to make change happen, right? We have all the right people in the right room when we're all here. And then also, to your point about being a single area state, yeah, we talked about that yesterday, which is whenever I kind of hear the comment of, it's just Wyoming just tends to move slow. To me, that's the nails on a chalkboard. I'm like, there's no reason why Wyoming should be moving slow. Like, we have this is our state and our local boards all in one meeting in one room, and we bump into the governor and your mayors in the grocery store. So there really is no reason why Wyoming can't innovate and can't pivot and move things quicker. And I've said before, where you look at our ancestors 100 years ago, Wyoming we were pioneers, right? You think about all the firsts that Wyoming had: first national park, first national monument, first state to allow women to vote. Cheyenne was the first city west of the Mississippi to get like our ancestors. They were thinkers, movers, and they got stuff done. And I just think it's now time to kind of dust off the little old book. We've got all of the stuff we need, and let's go. So thank you, Bria.
Kind of just along those lines, and not to belabor a point too much, but making sure, I think, in the future that we take advantage of all of us sitting here and give some time and opportunity to brainstorm and workshop. Listening and getting educated is great and a big part of why we were here. But I think also being able to have a chance to really, I don't know, kind of in-person work together, I think is something that we can do to move that narrative more quickly, in my opinion.
I agree.
I agree with a lot of people, first of all. But as a new member, I felt very, very overwhelmed. And up until this meeting, I had no idea really how to get involved. So for the last 3 months, I've just been sitting in Gillette thinking, oh, this is a super fun council. What am I doing? I mean, honestly. But just maybe helping us new members, like what should we do? Where can we evolve? But I agree with Dan 100%, trying to keep our Wyoming workers employed. Working in the industry that I work in, I see so many people. I can't tell you how many welders I see on a pipeline job every single day that have out of state plates. So it's important that we're utilizing the employees and making sure that we're getting them through the training that we need to, because we have so many amazing programs, apprenticeships in this state that we're not fully taking advantage of.
All super excellent points. And, part of our strategy, I've been working with Ivy and Director Gagan and Jennifer on rethinking that whole onboarding process, right? Because that's another opportunity we have. We shouldn't just go online 4 times a year. There needs, we've got these huge gaps, right? Where we can still be having conversations and throwing out ideas. So really trying to get that, the onboarding, because you're right, it is a waterfall of information when you start this council. So we are looking into that, but then as well, how do we continue to spark things in between the quarterly meetings? So I've got ideas on that, which we'll talk about later, but great stuff. Deborah.
Thanks. So I think the last couple day has been really informative, and I agree with you. Like, at first you put on the council and then you just hear nothing, do nothing, wait. And so it was like just researching information, doing some onboarding classes, but then what do we do right away? So I'm excited that you have ideas to make that better. And I think that we really need to focus. Our workforce is changing and changing quickly. And we just need to keep up to date on that. And how can we, assist those workers and just communicate to them all the resources available, because employment can be hard. And, some parts of our state, there's growth in certain areas. And then where I live, there is downsizing and downsizing quickly. And those people, you know, early retirement, moving out of state for the winter to do other jobs. So how do we keep them, those workers in Wyoming, so we have a strong workforce for other opportunities that are coming up that may not be open today, but may be open soon?
Yeah, those are great thoughts. Thank you, Deborah. Are you finally ready, Tony? I've given you a lot of time.
I think the top priority is that no one needs to, or no one should be allowed to change their seating location in the next 4 years. I have just a couple of quick thoughts, kind of a little bit related to what Philip and Dan were talking about. I think I always like when we get direct contact with workers in various forms. And we were talking about this summit dinner last night. I think that making more direct contact with communities or groups that might need our assistance or partnership is really valuable. So we talked about being here. We talked about maybe going to Rollins in the future and going to the penitentiary and things like that. It's not exactly what Philip and Dan were talking about, but I think that hearing from workers directly is always of real value to me. We've had presentations in the past where sometimes some of the one-stop centers have brought like success stories and have talked to us about that. And that's been great. But I'd also kind of like to hear from people about not failure stories, but stories where maybe we've fallen short a little bit, or there's other things that were needed, you know, or holes that could have been plugged or whatever. And I think that might help us identify future needs. For example, we just heard that the Wind River Reservation is going to get $36 million. That's going to create projects and jobs, and they have to spend it in 3 years, which means in 3 years, there may well be a lot of jobs that are no longer funded or that are going to go away. And that's an opportunity for this council to provide support, potentially, you know, for an anticipated need like that. So that's kind of one thing, is just more, is like all different forms of more direct engagement with workers across the state. Sorry, that's super general. And then the second thing is that I'd personally like to see, I want to be careful how I put it, but like essentially more engagement on the council itself in terms of like attendance, essentially. Like, and I'm not criticizing anyone. I've missed plenty of meetings myself. But even with online being an option, I think we're only at, you know, maybe half or a little more of the council each time. And that's fine. I'm not, again, this is not a critical comment. I just think if we can build that, then we're just gonna there's so much expertise on this council. And sometimes we come to these meetings and I'm like, well, half of it's not here, you know? And there's probably somebody who would have had some brilliant idea on something we've been talking about over the last 2 days, who for whatever legitimate reason hasn't been able to be here. So I don't know how you're going to do that, ET, but that's an idea.
No, that's really great. That actually is probably one of the biggest things I've been thinking about. How do we increase council engagement, right? To your point, you know, I don't think I've ever been at a council meeting where every single person has been there, you know, but you think about who would be the valuable resource in that situation. But then also it can kind of create some policy slowdowns. When you don't have a quorum, you can't vote, you know. And that was something that happened on our, you know, our communications committee. We went how many meetings because we just never had a quorum. Yeah, so there is also kind of this respect that, you know, being a part of this council, again, you're appointed by the governor, you have a duty. Yes, I don't think any of you are not busy outside of these council meetings, but, you know, I just ask that when you're on the council, you're here. You know, and if you don't have the time or capacity to no longer serve the state of Wyoming and be a part of this council effectively, you know, it's okay to just say, I don't have the time anymore. You know, step away and we can find someone else to fill that seat. But we really want to make sure you know the importance of these roles and that you're engaging. And yeah, to all those are all great things. And last but not least, I think the representative on the council is Lauren. What do you think?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my job with the Wyoming Innovation Partnership has been to pull all of these efforts across the state together. And I think that I'm hearing that in various forms across the room in all of these comments. And so when I think about all of the awesome efforts that are happening at all of the different different groups. I mean, you think about your K-12 folks, all your different school districts, you think about your higher education institutions and the work that they're doing. You think about all of the different regional offices that DWS has. Think about all of the different local economic development agencies and the efforts that they have. If we can make some effort to pull it all together, get information in similar places, increase conversations across the board, I think we can be far more effective across the entire state and driving what's working. And it's not going to look the same in every community. It's going to be different in every community because every community has different economic drivers. But I think really, how do we as a council bring in the right people, have the right conversations, engage in our communities across the state, make sure people know about what's happening at the state level. There's also a little bubble around Cheyenne that, you know, seems to lots going on there, but folks on the other side of the state don't know about it. And so I think that increasing that awareness, increasing the people that are having conversations, and then driving really what's working across the state, across these different silos that we all work in, is very important. And I think that, you know, you might have to start small. You can't do all of it at once, but I think, you know, finding areas that are working and pushing that throughout the state is something that I am focused on. And I hope that, you know, the council can be brought together to support that as well.
Yep. No, I talked about that yesterday. I'm a huge believer in the interstate partnerships, you know, so that we're not working against each other, we're working with each other, or we're utilizing each council and commission effectively. Like, oh, you do really good stuff over there. Like, you do what you do well. We can do this really well to help you, or vice versa. Right. So totally agree. And I think last but not least, Director Gagan, where would you like to see the council go in the next 4 years?
I don't know where I'd like to see the council go. But kind of reiterating Lauren and the Wyoming Innovation Partnership, you know, really that program is focused on industry and what industry's needs are, and different, you know, parts of the government trying to help them get there. And, you know, both the work that Ron and Larry do in their different regions, I think is instructive. But the more that everyone on the council can talk about what employers can do to help themselves. You know, if you want more kids in high school learning about the trades, what are those things that you do to work with your school district and, you know, to work with kids to get them interested in what we all know are very, very good jobs. But industry has to be a very, very big part of any conversation that we have about workforce. And we, I think, need to be ready to help industry to get them to kind of make those connections. And I mean, it's what the Business Council does. It's what our community colleges do. Every community college, I believe, regularly meets with people in their district, industry, and business leaders to learn what those needs are. And so I don't think I'll often hear about that. I hear more about that when I'm at a WIP meeting. But some of that information I think is really, really helpful. And, you know, businesses I think need to know that your community colleges are a very, very large part in workforce development. Please ensure that you are getting information to them and giving them feedback. Obviously, K through 12 as well. And, you know, Ron and Larry, I think, have done excellent jobs in their areas of trying to work with the schools so that, you know, the kids in school are learning the types of things that are going to be valuable to them when they graduate.
Awesome. Thank you, Director. Great. Well, I guess, you know, just thank you for all kind of humoring me with this little questions. Like, we had some time and I thought it might be kind of fun just to do a little quick roundtable on a simple question and get some ideas flowing. And oh, does someone have a thing? Oh, okay. Because we're about to go to break. So if you want, yeah.
Real quickly, in the onboard, the council group chat, I put a link with more information on the Wind River Development Fund's federal recompete grant. So give you a little more context.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's on Onboard. There's a link on Onboard to learn more about what we spoke about this morning, which it sounds like, there's a lot to unpack there. And I definitely feel like I need to get caught up to speed a little bit more on that myself. And funding is 5 years. Okay, that's a little bit of a breather. That's still, though, a huge task for this region to lift on their own. So, yep, absolutely. Thank you, Ron. All right. Well, thanks again. So we're still ahead of schedule, which is great. So let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break. We'll reconvene at 10:15. And then when we come back, we're going to hear from, who are we hearing from? I believe Michael. Yeah, Michael Moore is going to give a presentation on our labor market information, our annual report there. Then we'll get some strategic plan updates, and then we're off to committee breakout. So 15 minutes, enjoy. At 10:15, I don't have a gavel, so I'm just going to pound this, but 10:15. All right, thank you. Enjoy your break, everyone.
Bring your gavel.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to have to bring my gavel.
Bring it. Don't have one.
Nobody move. Oh, did you hear that story?
No.
What happened?
No, I was at the restaurant.
Oh, you were?
I was there. I was at the other table.
Oh, you were at the other table?
We missed her. Well, we got yelled at too. I know.
Yeah.
It was like yelling. It was kind of like this seething aggression.
Oh, it was.
Was
Well, even at the very beginning, before most of you got there, like that same guy, like he was like, "When is your party coming? How many people should I expect?" And I was like, "Well, there's some outside chatting," and like so even from the get go, and then it was just that weird like was that uncomfortable feeling where
It was very
I thought he was
uncomfortable. It was
joking.
very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I was just like, oh crap.
This guy's not joking around.
Oh yeah.
But it wasn't yelling. It wasn't.
It was
was
aggression there for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll never forget it.
I know, I was like,
I was like, where are you from? This is like, I've never.
Huh?
No, it's.
I could see the whole table, like,
And Ron and got there crazy, like we were the only ones in there. We were just chatting, like we knew we were early. Right,
I was like,
right.
so
We're just gonna stay here and talk. And he went like.
Mhm.
So, and we hold more chairs than two. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I wouldn't take individual checks for that.
No, I think that's true. Then I think it's also there was so much good stuff. It's like, okay. All right, 1 minute warning.
That was my understanding.
All right, we're gonna reconvene. Nice. Oh. The gavel is still coming though in November. It'll be fun. All right. So hopefully y'all had an opportunity to have some conversation, stretch the legs, bathroom break, get a little bit of a refresher. So we're into our last part of the quarterly meeting, and we're going to kick it off with Michael Moore on a presentation around our labor market information annual report.
Absolutely. Mr. Chairman, members of council, thank you for the opportunity today. My name is Michael Moore. I'm the research supervisor for the research and planning section of the Wyoming Department of Workforce Services. Thank you again for inviting me to talk about the 2024 Wyoming Workforce Annual Report and an update on the state's labor market in 2024. Next slide, please. Just a little bit about research and planning to get us started. I think a lot of you probably are pretty familiar with what we do. We are an exclusively statistical entity within DWS. We collect, analyze, and publish timely labor market information, and we provide this information to the public, legislators, educators, training providers, the media, and more. Next slide, please. A lot of the information I'll discuss today in this presentation can be found in the 2024 Wyoming Workforce Annual Report. Everybody should have gotten a copy of this yesterday. I believe there's probably some extras floating around there. If not, and you'd like an extra copy or two, we do have a few available, so please feel free to just reach out, send me an email, and I'll be glad to get some more to you. As I go through this presentation, I've put some tags on the bottom right corner of the slides to let you know where to find the information in the annual report. A bit of background on the annual report. This is published by R&P each June in partnership with the Workforce Development Council. It's a very comprehensive report using data from several programs to provide as complete a picture as possible of Wyoming's labor market. Next slide, please. I want to start off today with a discussion on employment and wages, which can be found in Chapter 2 of the annual report. These data come from the Quarterly Census of Employment and Wages, or QCEW, and this represents about 90% of all wage and salary disbursements in Wyoming. There are some types of employment that are not included in these data, such as some types of self-employment, gig-type jobs, and people living in Wyoming but working in other states. Next slide, please. Before we get into some recent data, I want to show you a visual representation of Wyoming's total non-farm employment for the last 23 years or so, from first quarter 2001 to fourth quarter 2023. The black line shows actual employment by quarter, and the red line gives us a 4-quarter moving average so we can identify the overall trend in employment. You can see the seasonal nature of Wyoming's employment in the black line, which tends to peak in the third quarter of each year, which are the months of July, August, and September. The seasonality is driven by industries like construction and leisure and hospitality, which add jobs during those warm summer months. We hear a lot about boom and bust cycles, and you can see those in the graphic here as well. You can see our overall employment peaked in 2008, and we've never quite gotten back to that level. The shaded box in this graph represent periods of economic downturn. Next slide, please. Research and planning defined an economic downturn as at least 2 consecutive quarters of over-the-year decline in average monthly employment and total wages based on data from the QCEW. So this figure shows the over-the-year percentage change in employment, which is the red line, and total wages, which is the green line. And we've had 3 economic downturns over the last 15 years or so. The first one lasted from first quarter 2009 to first quarter 2010 and coincided with the National Great Recession. The next one lasted from second quarter 2015 to fourth quarter 2016, and that was driven by declining energy prices and demand, which led to losses in coal mining, job losses in coal mining and other mining sectors. The most recent downturn lasted from second quarter 2020 to first quarter 2021, and that was driven by declining energy prices and, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide, please. This table provides a really good snapshot of Wyoming's employment and wages in 2023. Our average monthly employment was 278,582, and that was up 6,362 jobs over the year, which was about a 2.3% increase. We had $16.5 billion in total wages, up 1.1 billion, which is a 7.3% increase. And the state's average annual wage was a little over 59,000, which was up about $2,700 or 4.9%. Next slide, please. From 2022 to 2023, almost every industry in Wyoming added jobs. 4 industries made up almost half of all new jobs during that period. Construction added over 1,000 new jobs, which was a 5% increase. Professional and business services added 977 new jobs, 4.7% increase. Mining, which includes oil and gas, added 782 jobs, a 4.8% increase. And leisure and hospitality added 741 jobs, a 2% increase. Next slide, please. I just want to give a quick note on the industry that's titled professional and business services. Some industry titles are pretty clear. When I say construction, retail trade, healthcare, people generally understand that. Professional and business services is a little bit different. This is what we call a super sector made up of 3 other sectors: professional, scientific, and technical services, management of companies and enterprises, and administrative and support and waste management and remediation services. So in particular, recent growth we've seen has been in areas like architectural and engineering services, management and technical consulting services, and employment services such as temporary help services. Next slide, please. Most counties added jobs over the year from 2022 to 2023. In the map on the right, the counties in black had the greatest over the year job growth percentage-wise. So for example, the greatest job growth was seen in Natrona, which added more than 1,200 jobs, 3.3%. Laramie added over 1,000 jobs, Teton County added over 900, and Campbell added 828. The only counties that lost jobs over the year from 2022 to 2023 were Carbon, Niobrara, and Platte, which are the counties in white on the map. Next slide, please. This graphic shows Wyoming's average monthly employment by year and quarter from 2019 to 2023. And the idea of this graphic is to gain an understanding of how Wyoming has recovered since the pandemic. The black line shows average monthly employment by quarter, and the red line shows the 4-year moving average and lets us see the trend. The shaded box here represents those 4 quarters of economic downturn that I mentioned from second quarter 2020 to first quarter 2021. And you can see steady growth since the end of the downturn. But you can also see it took us until 2023 to get back to pre-pandemic employment levels from 2019. Next slide, please. In 2019, Wyoming's average monthly employment was 277,114. And in 2023, our average monthly employment was increased to 278,473. That's an increase of about 1,400 jobs or 0.5%. In other words, it took Wyoming basically 4 years to get back to pre-pandemic employment levels. Next slide, please. As you can see here, all of our surrounding states recovered at a much greater rate from the pandemic, most notably Idaho and Utah, where total employment grew by 12.1% and 11.2% from 2019 to 2023. Idaho has seen pretty substantial growth for most industries, most notably construction, healthcare and social assistance, and professional, scientific, and technical services. Utah saw a substantial increase in those same industries, along with manufacturing and accommodation and food services. And the national average in employment growth was from 2019 to 2023 was 3.3%. And again, ours was 0.5%. So you see that we continue to lag behind. Next slide, please. So why is Wyoming job growth lagging? Well, as you can see in industries like professional and business services, retail trade, and leisure and hospitality, those added pretty significant number of jobs from 2019 to 2023. However, the mining sector, which we all know is a key driver of the state's economy, lost more than 3,600 jobs or 17.7% from 2019 to 2023. So while mining employment grew over the year from 2022 to 23, it's still far below where we were in 2019. Next slide, please. This graphic shows employment in Wyoming's mining industry from 2001 to 2023 by year and quarter. I mentioned Wyoming's most recent economic downturn earlier, and this graphic shows the same 3 downturns. You can see just how much employment in mining plummeted during these downturns. Employment peaked in 2008 with 29,267 in mining, and in 2023 employment was 17,079. That's a decrease of more than 12,000 jobs, or 41.6%. Another way of looking at that is to say essentially that 4 of every 10 jobs in Wyoming's mining sector in 2008 were gone by 2023. Next slide, please. I'll switch over now to the supply side of things and look at some of the information on Wyoming residents and workers. Next slide, please. Looking briefly at Wyoming's population, which can be found in Chapter 3 of the annual report. According to estimates from the U.S. Census Bureau, Wyoming's population in 2023 was 584,057. This was up by about 2,400 over the year, 0.4%. It was up even higher compared to 2019, about 5,300 or 0.9%. And over the last 10 years, Wyoming's population has increased by about 1,900 residents, which is about 1/3%. Next slide, please. This graph shows Wyoming's population from 2013 to 2023. And you can see it decreased during the previous economic downturn of 2015, 2016, and remained pretty flat through 2020. But since the pandemic, we've seen pretty steady over the year population growth each year. Next slide, please. This slide discusses data from the Local Area Unemployment and Statistics Program, or LAUS, which can be found in Chapter 4. Wyoming's labor force in 2023 was 295,207, which is the highest it's been in the last 7 years. The labor force is the sum of employed individuals and unemployed individuals. And specifically, unemployed individuals are those who are not currently working, but they are seeking employment and they are available to work. As you can see here, Wyoming had 286,669 employed and 8,538 unemployed in 2023. The average annual employment rate for 2023 was 2.9%. By comparison, the unemployment rate for the U.S. was 3.6%. Next slide, please. Unemployment insurance claims data are discussed in Chapter 5. Looking at UI claims, Wyoming had 10,460 total benefit recipients in 2023, which was the fewest we've had since at least 1997, which is the first year we have comparable data for. Those 10,000 recipients include people who received anywhere from 1 week of benefits up to a maximum of 26. 18.5% of all benefit recipients were out-of-state claimants, people who came here to work in an industry like construction, leisure, and hospitality, and then went home. 17.2% of all benefit recipients exhausted their benefits. The average duration that people stayed on unemployment was 10.7 weeks, again, out of a maximum of 26. Wyoming UI paid $45.1 million in total benefits, and the wage replacement rate was 38.6%, meaning that UI paid about 1/3 of an individual's pre-layoff wage on average, and that varies by industry. Next slide, please. This graph shows the top 5 industries with the greatest number of UI benefit recipients in 2023. Construction was responsible for more than 1 in 4 benefit recipients, about 27.7%. As you can see, the 2,901 benefit recipients in construction were nearly twice as much as the next industry, which was accommodation and food services with 1,501. Construction was also responsible for the largest share of benefit payments with approximately 13.7 million, or 30.4% of the total. The remaining industries in the top 5 were healthcare and social assistance, administrative and waste services, and retail trade, which all had about 700 benefit recipients each. Next slide, please. We hear a lot about the tightening of Wyoming's labor market, which is also the case nationally. And this information is measured by data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics JOLTS program, which stands for Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey. In June 2024, which is the most recent month we have data for, Wyoming had an estimated 17,000 job openings. Also in June, Wyoming had 8,835 unemployed individuals. Since early 2021, Wyoming has had approximately twice as many job openings as unemployed people. Next slide, please. And this graph shows the number of job openings in blue and the number of unemployed people in Wyoming from January 2001 to June 2024 by month. And you can see in the end of the graph here, especially, Wyoming is in pretty uncharted territory with the large number of job openings versus a relatively low number of unemployed individuals. Wyoming has had periods before with more job openings than unemployed people during the boom from 2006 to 2008 and during a period of large construction projects in 2018 and 2019, but never to this extent. You can see from 2009 through about 2012, Wyoming had substantially more unemployed people than jobs. So you had more people looking for work than there were jobs available. Next slide, please. Looking now at some of the demographics of Wyoming's labor market, these can be found in Chapter 6 of the annual report. And in 2023, there were 350,219 individuals working in Wyoming at any time during the year. This means this is anybody who had wages. They may have worked for one day or they may have worked all 4 quarters. Each individual is counted only once. Resident males made up 44% of all persons working, while resident females made up 39%. The remaining 17% were non-residents or individuals for whom we do not have demographic data. That's roughly 60,000 non-residents working in Wyoming in 2023. Next slide, please. It's important to understand what the term non-residents means when I use that. Non-residents are typically individuals who commute to Wyoming from another state or country for work. These may be people from Colorado, Florida, Canada, Mexico, Europe. These are just individuals that we do not have a way to identify. Non-residents also may be individuals who moved to Wyoming for work in 2023 and lived here, but had not established residency by the end of the year. Wyoming has historically relied heavily on a non-resident workforce, especially for industries such as construction and leisure and hospitality. During any given year dating back to 2000, non-residents typically account for anywhere from 12% to 17% of all individuals working in Wyoming. The number of non-residents in Wyoming's workforce has steadily increased over the last couple of years. Next slide, please. We'll move away from the annual report now, but continue the discussion on the demographics of the workforce. Over the last several years, Wyoming has seen a decline in the number of residents working in the state. There are several possible reasons why. We know that our younger workers continue to leave the state, and our research has shown that about half of all high school seniors from any given year are not found working in Wyoming within 5 years after graduation. Older workers are retiring or leaving the workforce. In 2023, individuals 55 and older made up about 1/3 of the state's population, which is slightly higher than the national average. And it's also worth mentioning Wyoming residents could be commuting to neighboring states like Colorado, Idaho, and Utah for work. Wyoming residents also may be working in jobs that don't show up in wage records, such as gig type jobs, and they may be teleworking for an employer outside of Wyoming. Next slide, please. This table shows the number of people working in Wyoming at any time in 2023 by their generation. In 2023, millennials made up the largest segment of people working in Wyoming with nearly 98,000 or 28% of the total persons working. Millennials are listed in green in this table, and these are the individuals born from 1981 to 1996. And in 2023, they were between the ages of 27 and 42. Next slide, please. This figure shows the number of Wyoming residents working in Wyoming by generation from 2000 to 2023. And there are some really interesting trends to notice here. Also, non-residents are not included in this graph. The green line represents millennials. The number of millennials, which has been the largest segment of the workforce since 2012, has consistently declined since the 2015-2016 economic downturn. The red line represents baby boomers, which are those individuals born between 1946 and 1964. And we can see how the number of baby boomers working in Wyoming pretty rapidly declined since 2008 as they've gotten older. The blue line represents Generation X, which is the generation in between boomers and millennials. We've also seen a decline in the last couple of years. And the black line represents Generation Z, which are our youngest workers. 2022 and 2023 marked the first 2 years in history when Generation Z made up a larger proportion of those working in Wyoming than baby boomers. Next slide, please. If we take that same graph and just look at 2 segments of the population, Gen Z and millennials, Gen Z from 2016 to 2023 was at the same point in their lives as millennials were from 2000 to 2007. We had far fewer Gen Z entering the workforce during their early years than millennials did. This could mean that fewer members of Generation Z are working, or it could also mean that they're working differently than millennials did at their age. More Gen Z could be working gig type jobs. They could be teleworking to another state or making money online, which might not be captured in wage records. Next slide, please. I'd like to briefly discuss our monthly publication, Wyoming Labor Force Trends, and some recent articles we've published. Trend is published electronically each month, and each issue has articles, data, tables, and figures on Wyoming's labor market. If you'd like to subscribe, if you're not already, just shoot me an email. My email address is at the end of this publication. All of our products, data sets, publications, presentations, and more are available at a link shown on this slide. Next slide, please. Wanted to touch on some interesting new research we've published recently. The June issue of Trends is available online and has an article discussing some new research. When a person moves to Wyoming, they have up to 1 year after establishing residency to obtain a Wyoming driver's license and to surrender their license from the previous state. So what we did was we linked our wage records database to the driver's license file that we received through an agreement with the Wyoming Department of Transportation. And we identified 3,653 individuals in 2023 who surrendered a previous license and obtained a Wyoming license. Of those, we found 2,464 in our wage records database, meaning they were working in Wyoming, and 1,189 were not working. So what we have is about a 2-to-1 split of workers and non-workers. And the top 5 states that people came here from were Colorado, Florida, Texas, Montana, and Arizona. This was pretty similar for both workers and non-workers. And this article has a lot more really good information on average ages, wages, industries of employment, and a lot more. Next slide, please. Currently, we all know uranium mining is a big topic in the news recently. This is a relatively small industry in Wyoming, but as I said, we know it's kind of at the forefront of the news. We have an article on uranium mining coming up in the September 2024 issue of Trends, which will be available online at the end of this month. There were 235 jobs in uranium mining in March 2024, which is the latest month for which we have data. There have been wide swings in uranium mining over the last 20 years, with a peak of 494 in June 2013 and a low of 139 in October 2021. We have seen a pretty continuous growth in uranium mining since 2021. Next slide, please. I'd like to finish up by talking about our newest long-term employment projections, which are 10-year projections for Wyoming from 2022 to 2032. We also produce 2-year short-term projections, which are available on our website. Next slide, please. Our newest long-term projections show that Wyoming is projected to add more than 35,000 new jobs from 2022 to 2032. Nearly all of our industries are projected to experience some growth, with the greatest projected for accommodation and food services, which is projected to add more than 5,000 jobs, a 16% increase. Healthcare and social assistance with more than 4,600 jobs, 13.7%. Construction, almost 4,000 new jobs, 18.7%. And educational services with more than nearly 2,800 jobs, a 10.1% increase. Next slide, please. When we move on to occupational projections, we have a lot more detailed information to really get into the data. This includes the education that's typically required to enter an occupation, experience, and training. So for example, we could put together a report on projections for occupations requiring some post-secondary education, or we could get more specific and look at jobs requiring just an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. Occupational projections also give us more than new job openings, which are typically just a small percentage of overall job openings. We can also see how many job openings are projected due to exits, which are people leaving the workforce, and transfers, which are people changing occupations. So exits may include things like retirements, people leaving the state or leaving the workforce to care for family members. Transfers might be things such as people changing careers, getting promoted, or things like that. When we talk total openings, that's the sum of new jobs, exits, and transfers. Next slide, please. As an example, I've put together long-term occupational projections for stockers and order fillers, which is an occupation with a large number of total projected openings from 2022 to 2032. We see that employment is expected to grow from 5,004 in 2022 to 6,139 in 2032, which is about 1,135 new jobs. But in addition to this, the occupation will also have 3,466 openings due to exits and 5,454 openings due to transfers. So in total, we're looking at more than 10,000 job openings for this particular occupation over the next 10 years. This is an occupation that requires a high school diploma or equivalent, no prior experience, and short-term on-the-job training. Next slide, please. Here's another example of long-term occupational projections, this one for carpenters. Employment in this occupation is projected to grow from 3,434 in 2022 to 3,865 in 2032, which is an increase of 431 new jobs over the next 10 years. In addition, we also see an additional 1,270 openings due to exits and 1,718 openings due to transfers, for a total of about 3,419 job openings in this occupation over the next 10 years. This is an occupation that typically requires a high school diploma or equivalent, no specific prior experience, but it does require an apprenticeship to enter the occupation. Next slide, please. With that, I will go ahead and wrap up. Thank you again for inviting me to speak here today. I know I've thrown a lot of numbers at you in the last 30 minutes or so. So if there's something in particular you would like to know more about, feel free to email me. Our website is on the slide. You can look around there. And if there's anything in particular you want to know about, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. Thank you.
Awesome. Great job, Michael and team. I'm a big data person, so I could spend an entire council meeting going through each of these slides, like talking about like, hey, help me better understand. But yeah, and it actually is very, very fascinating because this is speaking exactly to even what the National Government Association is seeing at a national level. So it's interesting that it is here in Wyoming as well. So any interesting, quick call outs you'd like to bring up? Yes, Bria.
Thank you for that presentation. That was really interesting. Most specifically, I think the data, talking about millennials and Gen Z coming up in that way, I think makes a lot of sense in terms of the remote workforce that they were also talking about. Do you all have any future plans for how to capture that sort of data? I think that would help level set a little bit the numbers that look like there are a lot of younger unemployed, which I think, especially in the tech and creative sector, I am a Wyoming business owner, but I also work for a remote out-of-state company. And so I think that there's a lot of folks kind of in my position who are contributing to their state economy, but also bringing in money, from outside. So just curious as to if there is a plan for looking at some of those numbers in the future.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of council, absolutely. That's been a topic of discussion, as you might imagine, for the last several of years. The BLS and the state LMI offices have been looking into a way to try and capture that data, which is a little difficult. The BLS has some national survey-based data. I don't know, I can't speak to how reliable that is or the methodology or anything, but that is something that we're aware of, and certainly have the states are discussing ways to try and capture that information.
Awesome. Great. Any other questions or call outs for Michael? Research and planning. All right. Thank you again, Michael, very much. And again, just a reminder, all of you will be taking home one of these. And so every single data piece you could ever want is inside of here. So there's a lot of gold. So go dig for it. All right. Thank you, Michael.
Mr. Chairman, and
Yes.
you all should have a copy of that. There are more on the back table. We didn't have a lot of table space. So if you want additional copies, please feel free to take them with you.
Great. Thanks for the reminder. Is there, I'm sorry, Ron? Is this published online somewhere?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of council, absolutely. If you go to our website, there's a link right at the top of the, right up the top there on the top nav bar to it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure.
Annual report is also posted in the agenda on Onboard. So you have a PDF as well.
Oh, that's right. Yes, there is a second attachment to this agenda item in Onboard. Yep. Thank you, Jennifer. I know. Leave it to Jennifer. All right. Moving on to our kind of last discussion before we head into committee breakouts, which is going to be strategic and state plan updates. That's going to be presented to us by Jennifer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll direct everyone to Onboard to talk more about the strategic plan. I'm going to go to this first item, which is the 2024 through 27 core partner spreadsheet for involvement. As the chairman mentioned earlier, the core partners, the WIOA core partners, which include Title I, which is adult, youth, and dislocated worker, Title II, which is adult basic education, Title III, which is our Wagner-Pizer services. Those are our basic career services and business services, and Title IV, which is vocational rehabilitation. All the program leads for those core programs met in Cheyenne in August, we went through all of the goals that are in the state plan. Now, as you remember, the council is in charge of setting the strategic direction for the workforce system. Part of that is to write the WIOA state plan. So from that, many of these goals should look familiar to you because the council made them, but there's a few other goals that came from our other core title partners. So in the meeting that we had in August, we went through this spreadsheet right here is every single, so the goals came from the council, the strategies came from the council and other core partners. So Yvonne's team did a great job of creating some of these documents for us, but they pulled out every single strategy is identified in the common element section of the state plan. And that group went through each strategy and identified what partners would like to be a part of the strategy or have to be. The X's that are bolded with an asterisk is where the strategy came from. So all of these strategies under the WWDC are strategies that it came from. And you can see farther down here, adult basic ed. So Title II identified some strategies, and so did vocational rehabilitation. Next item, and they discussed them and we talked about them. ET was able to join us for part of this. And then the next bit that we did after we identified who needs to be involved from the core partners was to identify a time frame. That became tricky to put actual months and dates. And so we ended up going with, we're working on right now, we plan to work on next. And then the future items are for years 3 and 4. So the state plan was written for 4 years, but we'll do a rewrite after 2 years. And that's where we can go and really look at these strategies and see which ones are working for us and which ones aren't, and adding any strategies that we'd like to add in that rewrite. And some of these future items also require other elements to be done first. And that's also some of the next items. Are there any questions about this spreadsheet so far?
Done here? So hopefully sometime next month, the core partners will meet again to identify a primary lead and then continue. And I join on behalf of the WWDC, but any member who is willing and available may join as well, such as what Chairman Trowbridge has mentioned a couple times. But we're going to identify a primary lead for the goal and then kind of flush out what those action items mean. I'm going to go back into the agenda for onboard. I've also pulled out, sorry, it takes me a second to get through. I've pulled out the WWDC specific goals. So these are all the strategies that are in the state plan, but also the strategies that you identified in the strategic plan. So here you'll see that it looks very similar in different colors, but it's just the goals that the WWDC, or sorry, the strategies that the WWDC identified in the beginning. So I bring this forth to you today because although I represent the WWDC on the kind of the core partners meeting, and we invite you to join us as well, a lot of the work for these strategies that the council decided need to also happen in committee. And so moving forward,
Some of these items have been done, such as 1.1, but as we work with the larger group, we can see if that can be expanded. So some of the actions items under 1.1 that the communications committee completed was to create elevator pitches for all of the programs under the WWDC. And if you don't have those elevator pitches, I'm happy to provide those to you, and some other branding and messages.
Jennifer, just real quick, we do have a question from Ron.
So, Mr. Chairman, my question is it possible to highlight, the ones that are completed as green, and the ones that we need to be working on as yellow, and the ones that we are behind on as red? So that way, whenever the council members simply look at the spreadsheet, it becomes evident exactly where it is we need to be spending our time and our focus?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Ron, specifically, part of the core partners meeting was to also look at reporting mechanisms. So in the state plan, we wrote that all the core partners would report on their progress quarterly. And our plan is to have the core partners start to report in January. We're hoping for, or February, whichever the chairman decides we meet for our first quarter meeting. But we were hoping to be able to do that in November, but quite frankly, the reality is the partners, and thus the WWDC as well, will probably not be able to report on completions or progress until January. I just happen to know 1.1 because we finished that one a while ago, but that doesn't mean that strategy is necessarily completed. It's just an action item of one of the committees was completed. And
Cool.
then
Thank you, Jennifer.
I know that the communications committee is really working on 1.4 as well, which is and that one's just solely us. We are going to bring in Title I and Title III to help us, but this really is, and the communications committee is really taking a big role in trying to figure out member training expectations, strengthening our orientation process, as the chairman spoke about earlier, and really making it a better experience for all of our members. And so this one, I would see, so right now the communications committee is taking kind of a lead on this. So I haven't updated the spreadsheet. This is just where we are so far on literally just pulling out all the strategies we said we do, set some kind of time frame, and then make a lead at some point in time. But right now the communications team is working on 1.4, but at some point in time the whole council is going to need to come in and bring their expertise and what they've identified would be helpful for training and expectations as well. I also envision that an action item in 1.4 will also be the updated bylaws for the council.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. Anything else, Jennifer?
So my call to action, because I know that this group is a group full of people who want to do stuff, is to go through all of these strategies that are highlighted for the WWDC. I will be bringing all of these, or this spreadsheet, to all of the committees in October to identify strategies that the committees can work on. And then we can post or talk about again in November which committees are working on and when the committees meet. So if someone who's not on that committee would like to join to work on a specific strategy, they can join that committee meeting. But the call to action really is to review these, identify any strategies that you would like to be a part of and which strategies fit. And I'd really just look at the now ones and which strategies fit for which of the committees that we have going forward.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, to kind of expand upon what Jennifer is saying, just with the change in like leadership and just getting on board and getting everything kind of like settled down, probably sometime in 2025, most likely January or February, I'll kind of present an idea to this council about doing better performance tracking and action items regarding these, because I think you're exactly right, Ron. At Apple, we had a concept called DRIs. It was a very famous story around Steve Jobs has had one little whiteboard at his desk, and it just had iPod, iPhone, or like Mac, right? Like the four big product lines. And there was one person's name written under there. That person was the directly responsible individual for ensuring that platform success across hardware, software. So, one of the other questions, like a dream is exactly that if it doesn't have a timeline and someone assigned to it, right? So that's something that we're going to be looking at in 2025. So that way we also have like what's called like a little product backlog. It's like a little bucket of things that you can just go and grab some stuff, to kind of start working on. So we're going to be looking at accountability and tracking these a little bit better as well. So, yep. Any other discussion from council or thoughts on our strategic plan, state plan update? All right. Thank you very much, Jennifer, for that update. And yes, we'll get that date put out when the conveners re-meet again. If you want to meet up is it going to be in Cheyenne, Jennifer, again at the Workforce Center? Do you know?
Yes, that's the plan. Well, actually, we might offer the October one. We're going to try and do it virtually so that more people can participate if necessary. Also at that, so right now we're starting with the core partners, and they'll meet again in October. And in that meeting, we'll identify any partner programs that we'd like to add to accomplish those strategies. And so, at some point in time, probably November and December, we'll be adding in the one stops, DFS, Department of Ed, and some other organizations to start really tackling these strategies, because it really is, these strategies encompass the entire workforce system and not just DWS and not just not even just those core partners. It's going to require a bigger effort to make sure that the system is working to accomplish those goals.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, so we'll get that information out to all of you. If you have the opportunity or willingness to join, we'd love to have you with the core partners. All right, moving on to our kind of
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I forgot one thing.
Sure.
Also in November, after the council meeting, it kind of piggybacks on that bigger conversation with about the workforce system. After the council meeting on November 7th, starting at 1:30, we're inviting everyone to join a conversation about the workforce system. And so when I say everyone, anyone you can think of, we've amassed a list, but I'm sure more people have other contacts, but we're looking for industry, we're looking for education, philanthropy, our workforce agencies, or anyone who touches workforce. So WIP and DFS, having this larger conversation about our workforce system. And this first meeting is just going to get back to basics. So see who we have in the room, what programs and services do you offer, what do you wish you could offer, and then finally, to wrap up the day, to really identify gaps in our workforce system so that we can meet the needs of our businesses and workers in the state. So I invite you all. That's why we're doing it after our meeting on the 27th or on the 7th of November, to join that bigger conversation. So we're inviting the Women's Council. Literally send me some more people if you can think of any, especially in the philanthropy group, to come and join this bigger conversation about the workforce system as a whole.
Awesome. Yeah, that should be a very, very engaging conversation. So, and I'm really glad that the timing worked out where, we're already going to be in Cheyenne, so you can just pop right over there and jump on in. So awesome. Thank you for that, Jennifer. All right, so we're at the kind of the last phase of the quarterly meeting, which, for those of you who are new, this is the spot where, as you know, we have 3 subcommittees. That basically is the full council broken down into 3 parts that have very different responsibilities, agenda items. I do highly encourage, I don't think it's actually required, but we might make it required, but you should all be a part of one of the subcommittees. So we have 3 subcommittees. We have communications and community relations. We have sector partnerships and career pathways. And then we also have strategic performance and finance. Each of those subcommittees have their own respective chair that kind of make sure they're holding the meetings, taking the meeting minutes, doing all the things they need to do to work towards our state plan. So just really quick, since we got some new folks here, from the chairs of those subcommittees, I want to do like a 1 or 2 elevator pitch. What is the meaning, purpose behind your subcommittee? And I'll start with Danny from Communications and Community Relations.
So I'm the chair of the communications subcommittee. Really, we have looked at a lot of, Jennifer touched on it a little bit. We've looked at kind of the elevator pitch, how this council presents itself, some of the messaging out. I'm going to say there's some talkers, there's some creative minds. It's a pretty fun, usually kind of dynamic little meeting, figuring out, solving some new communications problems. And I've got some I'm going to bring up in our meeting today. So about how we can communicate internally. So we're focused on a lot of internal communications and kind of how we speak about this council.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenny. Let's see, Tony, you want to elevator pitch on what is sector partnerships and career pathways?
Sure thing. Thank you. The job of our committee is to shepherd the sector partnership efforts of the council, which is part of the WIOA legal requirement that we have a sector partnership program. That takes a lot of different forms. We put on an academy every year, which just took place a couple of months ago, where we try to bring together new sector partnerships or existing sector partnerships to continue their work. We work on grants such as the one that was just passed by this council yesterday. Thank you for your support again there. And it's clearly the funnest and best of the committees to be on, and we let you sit wherever you want. I was expecting more jokes about that today, so sorry.
No, I anticipated I was going to come. I was like, oh God,
We're all Trump Tony.
I'd invite anyone who's new to the council to join us, and yeah, thanks.
All right.
We got some real characters on the committee. Let's be honest. So yeah, it's fun.
Who's in this room is not a character? I don't know if that exists. And our last one is strategic performance and finance, which is chaired by Travis Lawrence.
Thank you, Chairman ET, and Tony, thanks for keeping the joke alive. I got an opportunity to practice my elevator speech yesterday with Deborah. So what our committee does, there's primarily 3 standing agenda items. So the first one is reviewing the council budget and the department budget, and then reviewing any grant applications. And the last one is keeping the eligible provider list current and vetting or helping vet new providers that provide educational programs and credentialing and certifications. So.
Yeah, so we've got 3 really awesome subcommittees. So for those of you who either do not know what subcommittee you're on, you can choose between the 3, and or if you're new to the council, doesn't mean that which one that you join you necessarily have to like commit to right away. So if you do want to kind of float around a little bit, you are absolutely to do so. But Jennifer will be reaching out to you regarding your subcommittee appointments, and if you do have a preference, let Jennifer know. But yeah, if there's one that's already gravitating to you, go for it. You're gonna have just about 15 minutes to basically go out into your subcommittees, talk about the things, and then we'll bring you all back for kind of just some updates around what is going on in your subcommittees. So I think it is 11:03. So I'll give you until 11:20 to meet with your subcommittees. And let's just we only have this one room. Usually we can go out. You can kind of go wherever you want. But since Danny's over there, we could have that committee there, strategic performance and finance. Or you just find a spot and go huddle. So, all right, I'll see you back in this room at 11:20. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap up your communications committees and we'll reconvene. All right. Always find the subcommittee breakouts to be very helpful and engaging. And so now we're going to hear from our three subcommittees and kind of get some updates on what did you all discuss and what should this council know as we move forward in our day. So let's go ahead and start with committee updates. We'll start with the Communications and Community Relations Committee presented by Danny.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So largely what we discussed today were some of the challenges of getting our committee, getting quorum, but getting better attendance. Jennifer and I have talked about this before. She didn't hear this just now, but we're going to send out a survey and try and get more input. So it's the most convenient for our committee to get the most input from the group as we're attacking some of the strategic plan points. I'd really like as much input as possible because, largely on our committee, we're getting multiple private sector individuals that are sitting in. And so we're missing a lot of that input from all of the wealth of knowledge of this committee and who's on it. So if anybody feels like they would have the time and would like to weigh in with a very different voice than what we've got, that'd be fantastic. But that's what we were discussing is how do we get more engagement from, everybody's so busy. Let's find a time that works. Let's find days that work. How do we make a system that's easiest? So is it going to be our approvals? We have struggled to get quorum sometimes. Can we do our approvals via email? So looking at some of our communication systems and how do we make that most efficient? And I don't know if other subcommittees are having these same challenges, but hopefully if we find some process and some information that works, we could share that out. But it was sort of internal problem solving for our own committee that we discussed today, so that we can be as efficient as possible moving forward with the strategic points that we need to attack. So that was it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Chair Danny. And yeah, and this is again goes back to the fearless feedback component. As you are brainstorming ideas, that's kind of what we're here to do. And we'll just partner with the right people and say, yeah, we have the ability to do that, or no, we can't. And this is why. So, all ideas will be taken into consideration. So thank you, Danny. All right, next up, we have our sector partnerships and career pathways by Chair Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Quick update. We are going to have hopefully some further requests for changes relating to our grant application process in the future. The council approved one of those yesterday, but there's some continued discussion around particularly how we distribute money through grants and how we can be more efficient and how we can continue to, I keep using this phrase, I don't know if it's a very good phrase, but kind of throw gas on the fire of the partnerships that are really active. So more to come in the future on that. And then I was going to ask our committee member, Larry Fodor, to share some of the exciting stuff that's going on in southeastern Wyoming. So take it away, Larry. Thanks.
Thank you. Some of the stuff we're working on, we mentioned the apprenticeship kicking off in Torrington later this month. Just some of the facts behind that. They asked us to come up with some criteria for the Department of Corrections so they can pre-screen for the apprenticeship. We did that with getting the list from the Air Force Base, where there's a lot of work in Southeast Wyoming right now with GBSD and everything else. We got with the school districts and figured out what their go-tos were for denying badges to schoolwork and things like that. Provided that to Department of Corrections, and they had 6 positions for the apprenticeship for this first year, and they had 48 applicants from the prison system, which is a pretty good number that qualified, met all the criteria. So we're optimistic for that. The Albany County Manufacturing Sector Partnership is still going strong. Been working with Mary Orr. We have a construction group in Laramie for the Wyoming Young Contractors Coalition that's been gathering. Talking with Mary, we may look at combining construction and manufacturing into that same next gen partnership over in Albany County to include a broader range of people. And the manufacturers that all need expansion and everything else can't do that without the construction sector. So that might make sense for that Laramie community to have those combine over there rather than firing a new next gen specifically for construction. So lots of, what am I missing? ET, I think you and I spoke, maybe Del McComey, he's the director of construction for Wyoming. Been meeting with him about the fact that the state has $400 million to spend on state construction projects over the next year that's been approved. Dell's concerned there's not enough local labor to get these construction projects done. And part of that conversation is Del McComey's over the School Facilities Commission as well, under his umbrella. These schools are reducing CTE spaces and taking, technical education out of the schools little by little, and they can't add any square footage or enhance any of their spaces for CTE without reducing, that they move down the list on the Mercer studies and all the things. So we're going to try to get together and figure out a plan, maybe propose that enhancements for CTE at the high schools don't count against their square footage calculation. They don't deduct from the Mercer study, that type of thing. But his big concern is we've got a lot of money to spend all over the state for construction and not enough Wyoming workforce to do it. So we've got to come up with a solution, because if we're taking those programs out of the schools, we're fighting against ourselves. So, did I miss anything, Tony?
No, I think that's great. Thank you, Larry. Just two quick notes on that. I know, I think you mentioned Dell was interested in potentially presenting to the council. Yeah. So maybe we can talk about that for a future meeting. And then just wanted to say on the apprenticeship program, I mean, my day job is in human resources, and I can't remember the last time I had 8 qualified applicants per opening, which I believe is the ratio on the apprenticeship program that Larry mentioned. And that's with all the restrictions collected in terms of no-go offenses on badging and baselines for employment. So I think, I don't want to jinx it, but it's very successful before it's even fully gotten off the ground. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about what happens there. Thank you.
Yeah, great work. And yeah, we did discuss. So we're, obviously we're going to be working on the November agenda, between now and then. So we'll definitely consider that. And I think it'd be a really engaging conversation for sure. And a problem that hopefully some of our minds can help try to solve. Yep.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Just real quickly, being in that next gen committee meeting, I was thinking with 5 new members on the council, I'm wondering if we could maybe get John Melville in November to kind of talk about what is next gen. And
yeah, kind of like a refresher, I think it's always good. And
I can never have enough educational experience with all the stuff going on
Yeah.
myself. So.
Yep. And we've also discussed not only looking at how we onboard and train our new, council members so they know what's going on, but also just continuous training. How do we continuously train this group to be informed and knowledgeable on certain topics? So it's not just when you come in, here's a lot of training, none, so yeah, it's a good point. So yeah, we can talk to Jennifer and see what his availability is and get some refreshers on next gen for sure. Yep. All right. And last but not least, we'll hear from Strategic Performance and Finance from Chair Travis.
Thank you. Super excited and enjoy this platform and opportunity to update the council on what we've accomplished in the last quarter, as well as a little bit of education. Also super excited because it looks like I picked up 3 new committee members. So my elevator speech worked. So since taking over as chair of this subcommittee, my first goal in that was what I'll call orientation, which is to really understand our core function and what our role is and duties are. That way, all the committee or all the members on the subcommittee feel comfortable in that role and asking questions and really more knowledgeable. So what we've accomplished this last quarter, Jennifer Cassidy acquiesced and gave us a tutorial on the council budget and the department budget. So understanding the different revenue buckets and when those grants come in, how they're administered, and then all the expense line items. So, each month we we look at that, look at what the burn rate is, question, any outliers. On the strategic performance side, it has to do with our reviewing our ETPL providers. And Trevor Mansfield acquiesced and gave us an education on that application process and what it takes to become a provider, adding someone to the list, taking them off. And then the other kind of core function of our committee is reviewing grants, and not only, grants that we give out to Next Gen before it comes up to the main council, but also projects that our council chooses to do. So if you look at our current projects, we have 6 going on right now. 3 of those, are outside grants, and then 3 of them are internal projects of the council. Then last is policy review. So any updates to our policy, we look those over and get an understanding for the change before it comes up to the full council. Adding an additional agenda item, thanks to Tony Cross and the Next Gen, discussion on an allocation to what we think we can afford in Next Gen grants. And so kind of going to get some history here this next month on maybe the last 3 years, how many we've provided and what amount, and then kind of back into a number with what the council's budget is and what we think we can afford to allocate dollars in that direction. Not saying we need to allocate that much, or if we have grants that exceed that, it's probably fine as well. But I kind of want to zero in and target on a number for Tony. So, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Chair Travis. So, yeah, a lot of really great updates. And again, as we've spoken a lot about at this council meeting, the subcommittees meet once a month. So again, treat those as the same respect you would with the full council meetings, because this is where a lot of the boots on the ground stuff actually happens, engaging conversations. So yeah, when you see those meetings on your calendar, please attend them and participate as expected. So thank you very much for those updates. And we're kind of in the final round, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up to either 2 things, public comment, if we have anyone that's joining us remotely that would like to ask a question. Do we have anyone out there for public comment? Any public comment? All right. And then any other, before we start to wrap, any other council business that we need to discuss? Anything that we should be aware of, events happening in your local communities that you want to make sure we're all aware of? Any other miscellaneous items for the group? Yes, Ron?
So, Mr. Chairman, SWMP is looking at getting a nonprofit tax ID. We're in the final stages of getting that done. So we'll be able to become our own entity, so to speak. And we held our first golf tournament and generated a little over $11,000 to support our efforts.
Fantastic. All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'm going to ask Larry again. Sorry, Larry, to put you on the spot, but he brought up a job fair that's taking place in Cheyenne at the end of this month, I believe, that others may want to know about. Thanks, Larry.
Are you looking at the dates, Larry? You're like, when is it? That's fine. Oh, you can? Sure, Lauren.
Yeah.
I think Larry's actually going to put that out on Hire YO.
September 25th at the Air Guard in Cheyenne. They're expecting 1,800 high school students coming through there. So it's a huge career fair. They're going to have a few vendor booths, some on-site demonstrations of, plumbing, electrical, that type of thing, so that they can get interested. But all different sectors will be represented, as well as the military. But 1,800 students is a lot. So Okay. What's the 25th?
25th is LGC DWS at LGC.
Okay.
There's also one in Rock Springs the same day for the Rock Springs. Manufacturing Day is October 9th and Rock Springs October 6th. So we've got that coming.
The Air Guard is 9/26.
Great. Well, I definitely encourage you to, for right now, put that in onboard. I know, Ron, you do a really great job of like posting. And also, I love it when you share photos too. You share a lot of photos or interesting articles that are relevant to what we're talking about here on the council. So please put your dates in there. Then we'll kind of look at maybe a process for getting some of these on a unified calendar so that you can kind of take a look at when all these career fairs are happening or different events that you could attend based on the WDS's schedule. Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just wanted to remind everybody too, the Governor's Business Forum is coming up. It's in November, and it's in Laramie. And then it usually fills up pretty quickly, as do hotel rooms. So don't delay if you want to come. And then tied to that on the 12th, so it's November 12th through the 14th. On the 12th, before the forum from 11 to 1, we're doing a Wyoming Innovation Partnership kind of panel update. And so we'll talk about all the different programs from the program leads from all of the different community colleges. So if you guys have people within your communities and you yourself would like to come and just understand some of the work that they're doing so that we can better collaborate across the state, that would be great. And I'll send an invite out to everybody.
Cool. Thank you, Lauren. Any other updates? Yeah, Brenda?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to announce that National Apprenticeship Week is going to be the week of November 17th through the 23rd. And I'll share again with the council any events that will be having going on, but that's always been successful. And then the Wyoming Apprenticeship.gov.com, I'm sure they will have other events posted as well.
Very cool. Do we know if they've hired the Wyoming apprenticeship? Are they still looking?
I know that they reposted it in July, but
They posted
I
it.
have not heard if they've.
They haven't replaced Michael Broad yet?
No,
Okay.
which makes it difficult. So if you're trying to get a program registered with the Department of Labor, you're having to work with a regional office out of Dallas.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I was like, oh, I miss Michael. She was great. All right, any other council discussion or dates? Yep.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Wind River Job Corps is going to have an employer roundtable on September 27th from 11 to 1. Everyone's invited, and Bunks barbecue will be served, so it's on the house. So hopefully people will come and chat with our students. Thank you.
Yeah, strategic timing as we're getting ready for lunch. I was like, ooh, barbecue sounds really good. Nice. Any other discussions? Cool, because I just got a few little quick housekeeping notes before we I make a motion to adjourn and talk about what we're going to expect. So a few things, these are like things I was thinking about the whole meeting. First of all, we do have, if you didn't see, we do have board emails now available via the Department of Enterprise Technical Service, ETS. So if you do want, so I personally chose for it. I just prefer to do council business via a government email. The thing is, if you ask for one, just use it. You need to check it. But what that would look like, it would be like mine is eric.trowbridge@yoboards.gov. And so if you would like to utilize the yoboards.gov email, if you don't have one already, reach out to Jennifer and they can get that set up for you. So we have emails if you would like. Yes. Yes.
I got in, now it's something about my two-step verification that won't let me back.
Yeah. So Jennifer, are you good with kind of handling those requests? I don't want to speak on behalf of you.
Yes, I'm good. And I can put in onboard again, the form to fill out if you would like.
Oh, that's
one.
right. There's a form. Yep. Cool. Let's see. And then just so that you all know, Jennifer, do we turn on feedback for this council meeting on onboard?
Yes, so everyone after the meeting should receive a survey, and if people don't, so I wouldn't know because I created this, but if you don't, let me know, because then I didn't push a button I was supposed to.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the things that Onboard had was a feature that we didn't turn on until just recently, which is after each of your meetings, your subcommittee meetings and these quarterly meetings, like it's going to be an anonymous little button in an email that you can leave anonymous feedback, rate the meeting from a scale of 1 to 5. I'm just encouraging all of you to put in your feedback. What did you like about the format? What didn't you like? Ideas, and again, it's entirely anonymous. And so I'm working with Jennifer and Ivy and director and, reviewing that feedback so that we can continuously make improvements to what we're doing here. And then some of the things that will be coming up in November, we hope to have a vice chair announcement happening between now and November. So obviously that requires close partnership with the governor's office, as it is his choice who the vice chair will be. So we're looking forward to making that announcement soon. And in between that time as well, in November, we will also announce the 2025 locations for our quarterly meeting, as well as the date. So we will, and as soon as we have that, we'll post it so you can get it on your calendars and start to strategically plan for that. And then let's see, I do have, okay, if any of you did not get an opportunity, if you wanted to have one of James's business cards, they're up here. So if you want to talk to James from the Tribal Liaison Office, we've got business cards there. And if you didn't sign, we have 2 cards for 2 outgoing former council members. So we have, former Chair Fabian, and then we also have Jim Engel. So if you didn't have an opportunity to sign it, please do so. And then I think, lastly, to just kind of wrap up, I'm excited. This was fun. I'm really, again, honored to be here. A lot of really great conversations. I look at our agenda that we had from yesterday to today, and just so many cool topics. And there's so many opportunities for us to continue engagement. And like I've mentioned before with those 5 tentpoles, and it sounds like it came out of all the strategic subcommittees as well as individual conversations, is really taking your role on this council seriously, right? It is a very special appointment. There's only 30-ish of us that get to do this for a very shortened amount of time, and so it's really important that you show up, you're available, you provide even. That's why you're here. That's why you were asked to be here, to serve the state of Wyoming. The last thing that I want would be to be the chair of a figurehead board. Like, I don't want to chair a figurehead board. I want to have a council that is a working council, that is truly ingrained and really wants to get down and dirty to get to make this state the best that it can be. So just respectfully, like I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, there's no shame if you need to resign. I just ask that if you're going to stay on the council, that you're going to be here and you're going to be present and you're going to make change and you're going to engage with your other council members, and you're going to go out and, like what Ron spoke to earlier, we as a collective can do great things, but truly at the end of the day and in between these meetings, it's about what are you doing? What are you doing to talk to your local companies? What are you doing, right? So just please keep that in mind. And there's no shame in that. I would just much rather have, if you don't have the time or capacity to be a part of this and engage that way, there's a lot of other people that would love to be in this seat and and have the microphone and talk about what stuff means to them in Wyoming. So that's what I have there. And then our next meeting is going to be in Cheyenne on November 6th and 7th at the Workforce Center on Del Range. And then the only last bylaw tweak that we might vote on would be that if any of you move a seat during a council meeting, it is immediate resignation. People are going to watch this 4 years from now. They'll be like, what were they talking about? Yeah. Yeah. Like, it's fine. It's fine. But that's all I had. I'm excited to work with all of you. I'm excited to hear your ideas. Again, fearless feedback. I do not take anything personally. So thanks again for attending. And I, at this time, would welcome a motion that we adjourn.
So moved.
All right, moved by Ron Wild. Then I officially call our Q3 2024 Wyoming Workforce Development Council meeting concluded. Be safe, everyone. See you in November.